I am Venki, and this is the Working Athlete Podcast. Here, I talk to working athletes from all walks of life and experts from various sports to provide you with inspiration, training tips, time management, and lifestyle advice. If this is something that interests you, please make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future episodes. Today's guest, John K. Sunny, is a cyclist from Kerala who burst into cycling scene with a bang. Barely 1 year into competitive cycling, he made winning almost a habit. In this episode, we talk about his sports background growing up and how he got into cycling. We talk in detail about his beginnings and how he ended up representing Kerala at the Nationals within a few months of starting cycling. He shares the various mistakes he made in his earlier races and what all he learned by taking part in as many races as he can. It was a super fun conversation with a very interesting youngster. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. But first, this episode is brought to you by Findbetter.ai. Findbetter is a social networking app for cycling and running enthusiasts to discover and shop together. Just like you post your rides or runs on Strava, you can post about your cycling or running related products on Findbetter, like reviews, stuff you are looking for, accessories you have for sale, etc., so that you and others benefit from your experience. For a cycling enthusiast like me, it is a treasure trove to find all sorts of bikes and accessories, both used and brand new. It is completely free to use and is available both on Google Play and the App Store. I am there on the app as Bikey Venki. You can follow me there to see what I am posting there. This episode is brought to you by The Bike Affair. If you are in search of a one-stop destination that caters to all your cycling needs, our today's sponsor, The Bike Affair, is the perfect place to check out. I have known the founders of The Bike Affair, Krish and Gokul, personally for nearly 15 years now. In fact, my first century ride was with Krish back in 2008. They are both exceptional human beings and entrepreneurs that believe in providing exceptional service to their customers, and it shows. With over 14 years of experience, the Bike Affair has established itself as a trusted source offering honest advice and exceptional service. They are offering a special treat for the listeners of this podcast. You can enjoy a 10% discount on your first order by using the code BikeyVenki on their website. So if you are in Hyderabad, visit their store in Kondapur, or if you are anywhere else in India, shop online by using the link thebikeaffair.com. I will leave the link in the show notes. Now, enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the Working Athlete Podcast, Sunny.
Hi, Venki. Thank you for inviting me. So, I didn't think I was established enough in the scene to be on Venki's radar, but here we are. I think I have a pretty interesting story. So,
Good.
thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm very curious to hear about your story and share it with others. So let us start by talking about what is your relationship with sport growing up?
Okay. So, in that respect, I find that some people, so I started in cycling pretty late. So it's only been a little over a year since I started competitive cycling. But compared to, I've watched a lot of your other podcasts. So compared to people like Naveen, John, or Joel, who've had periods of their life where they were completely sedentary. They were not doing any sport. So they let themselves go a little bit. I've not really had a phase like that. I've always been active in some sport or the other. Not necessarily at a high level. So in school, I used to play football mostly. So up until 10th grade, I used to play football. And I also used to run middle distance. So that was something I started a little late, maybe 9th or 10th standard. I started middle distance running. So, and I was mildly successful in that. 1500 meters, 3000 meters, those were my two favorite events. 3000 meters, I've won a couple school level
Nice.
races. And then, in 11th standard, I really got into basketball. So I hit a slight growth spurt. I gained a couple inches. But that was not the reason I got into basketball. The reason I got into basketball is a lot more funny and a lot more petty. The reason I got into basketball was because I didn't make the cut for the football team. So I got into basketball.
Okay.
Kind of for the spite of it, I got into basketball, and then I found that I was a lot better at basketball than I was at football. So, and I was a little physical. I mean, I was not the tallest guy. I mean, I was around 5'11" at that point, 5'11", 5'10.5". So I was fairly tall, and I could get pretty physical. And for my size, I was pretty strong as well.
What is your height now?
Right now, it's about 5'11.5". I didn't grow much after that.
Right.
My target was always to get to 6'4", but then
It's
God
not
decided,
something
God,
that
yeah.
it is in
So,
our hands,
so
right?
the growth spurt that I hit was pretty sudden. So from like I was always like a short to medium height guy all throughout school, and suddenly in 11th standard I just started shooting up. So I extrapolated that curve and I figured I might get to like something like 6'2", 6'3", but then I just stopped at 5'11.5". I stopped. Not even 6.
Genetics, right?
God didn't have the dignity to give me 6 even. So 182 centimeters. That's what I like constantly say what my height is.
Hmm.
On Tinder, I might put it as 6 feet, but 182.
Yeah.
And that was good enough to play basketball at the level I was playing it at. And school, I was again, I was like a newbie in basketball. So the thing about basketball is it's very skill based, right? So the guys who start young, they have an advantage in things like dribbling. It's very skill based. I was never that good of a dribbler, but I got slightly better at it, and I was not that good of a shooter, but I could like drive in, and I played 45 most of the time, and sometimes I played post as well. So that's my and so that was in school. I picked up basketball towards the end of school, and in college, basketball was my life. So the 4 years of college, so I played for college and inter college events, and that was in NIT Calcutta. We would have this thing called inter NIT, and there was also one guy from school. So he was like a national level basketball player. So he came into my college. He was 1 year junior to me. His name is Moin Saber. So yeah, shout out to Moin. I played with him in college as well, and then yeah, college basketball was the life. So that's my relationship with sport there, and all throughout my life I've also played badminton recreationally, and running I did a little bit of it in college, but not as much as I did in school. Or like a few college level events I did. Yeah. And then cycling is more of a recent phenomenon. Cycling I've done all through my life for commuting and utilitarian purposes, but as a sport and competitive cycling, it's a little over a year that I've started it.
It's unbelievable that it has just been a year that you started cycling.
Yeah. It gets a little more and more believable as time goes on, and now it's 1 year. So in the beginning, it was like 3 months since I started cycling, and I was still beating a lot of guys who've been doing it for years. It was really unbelievable. Now it's getting a little more believable.
Right. How did you get into cycling? What's the story behind that?
Competitive cycling, right?
Competitive cycling, yeah.
Competitive cycling. So I had when I first moved to Bangalore after my college, that was in 2018. I moved to Bangalore for my first job. So pre-COVID times a little different. So yeah, Bangalore had a reputation for being traffic heavy. So I figured that if I get a two-wheeler motorcycle or if I get a bicycle, I'm just gonna get to places at the same rate. I got a basic Riverside 50 from Decathlon. That was the first thing I did after coming to Bangalore. I think in the next 2 or 3 days, I got my first bicycle. First bicycle in Bangalore. It's a Riverside 50. It's a single speed. It's the basic. It's not the very basic beat. What's the basic bike called? My bike. It's not the my bike. It's one notch above that, but it's still the most basic Riverside you can get.
Correct, yeah.
It's a hybrid, and it's pretty utilitarian, and it's also pretty reliable. I'll still use it. So around my hometown, if I need to go to a shop or something, it's the bike that I still use. I still have it at home. So I got that, and I used to go everywhere on that. So I had a couple of relatives here. I had a couple of friends here. Whenever I needed to go somewhere, I'd just take that. So 20, 30, 40 kilometers was a comfortable distance for me. During weekends, I'd do something like 30. And I didn't just ride to ride. I would never ride to ride. I would only ride to go somewhere. So that's how I got started in cycling. And then right before COVID hit and all, I moved back to Kochi. I took my cycle with me. And occasionally I do this long ride. So long ride for me back then was maybe around 70, 75 kilometers. And I'd be done after that. So this uncle and aunt of mine that lives in the adjacent district called Thrissur. I live in Kochi, Ernakulam. So that's about a 75-kilometer trip. I'd go there and I'd stay the night there, and then I return the next day. So that was a long ride for me. And during that time, I felt a little limited by my bike. So I know that if I have bigger gears, so this has a pretty small gear. I think it's something like 40, 14 or something.
Hmm.
It's a pretty small gear to push. So I just spin out. At like 30 kmph, I just spin out. I cannot pedal on descents, and I cannot just really go fast on flats. And I knew that I had more in the tank. I knew that I could go faster. Maybe. I didn't know for sure. But I knew that I was not just using my body to its full potential on that bike. And I couldn't either. So towards December 2021, I decided to just make a jump for it and try to get a road bike. So I had an option. I wanted to get a new bike. I could either get a higher end hybrid bike with gears, or I could get a road bike. And quite a lot of people try to discourage me from a road bike, and even I had my inhibitions because road bike. What I instantly see about road bike is, and I was not familiar with the road bike world at that point. I see these narrow tires. So I feel like the first pothole I hit, I'm gonna get a puncture, or I'm gonna bend a spoke, or I felt like these things were really delicate. That's the impression I had about road bikes. So I had my inhibition about getting a road bike, but I eventually just made the plunge.
That's the view that all most of the people who actually see the bike and haven't experienced will get have.
But I think the reality I've learned is that road bikes can take a lot more for pounding than a regular hybrid.
Correct.
Because I guess because it's the high quality parts used and high quality materials used, I put my bikes through a lot of hell, but then they've held up.
Yeah.
To the test of time. And I am also like fairly good with maintaining my bike. Joel would tend to disagree. He thinks I'm shit at maintaining my bike, but he gives me an earful every time he sees my bike, and he has like 10, 20 different things to say about my bike, about how I'm just ruining it. But I think I'm fairly good at it, personally. So where were we? About the first road bike, right? So that was the basic Triban 100 RC from Decathlon, the drop bar version. And I found that I was immediately pretty fast at it. So that also didn't have the normal gearing that road bikes have. That it had a one bike crank. It had a 44 at the front.
Oh.
And then I think it went down to like a 13 or a 12 at the back. It's still not a big gear to push on the flats.
Right.
I was still limited gear-wise a little bit, but I found out that I was instantly a lot faster on that. And like, so I think the week that I bought the Triban, I decided to do like a long ride. I wanted to do 100K. I don't think I had ever done 100K until that point. The 70, 80K was my longest ride up till then. So one late night, it's like 2 a.m. or something. I have work the next day. I just decided to go. I put my like lights on the bike, tail light, front light. I safety first, and then I just went on the highway. So this was my main intention. I wanted to go fast on the highways. That's what I bought the road bike for, because at that point I'm still thinking bad roads, road bike is gonna get trashed. So I wanted to ride fast on the highways, and for everything else I just still use the hybrid. So I went on the highway. I think I had this Instagram story and all. I do a lot of Instagram stories. But anyone who's been on my Instagram knows I post like 10 stories a day. Back then it was probably like 2 stories a day. But
yeah.
I've always done a lot of stories. So I had the story post asking people, how fast do you think I would go on this ride? It's 100K. So it's a longer ride than I've ever done. So I had these 3 buckets. I think the first bucket was 27K. The next one was 30K. The next one was 33K. So I thought I'd do somewhere around 30 kmph, but I did 33 kmph, 33.33 kmph I did. So
the first the first K on the
I
bike.
took one break in the middle. 50K I stopped for like 2-3 minutes to get a swig of water and all. But the first 100K I did was sub 3 hour. So I had the legs for it. So that was my start, and yeah, then once I figured I had the legs for it, so the first month or a month and a half, I was just riding alone, riding on the highway alone, riding the surroundings, like the neighborhood alone. Then I found out there was this cycling community in Kochi, so I reached out to them, and they took me in. They said that I can ride with them. So it was called C3 Racing, and then I started riding with them regularly. And then I took like for 3-4 months, I took coaching from the C3's leader, who was called Solvin. So yeah, that's how I got into like structured training.
Solvin Tom,
yeah. Oh, how do you know him?
Yeah, I mean,
he's pretty established in the scene. Yeah, I think he's also raced in Bangalore.
He used to come for races here.
These days, I don't think he races that much. He's more into coaching and mentoring and all. Right. But yeah,
back in the day,
he used to race quite a bit.
Yeah. So you were riding with C3.
Yep.
Amazing. So how was your how did your riding change from that point of time?
So immediately the first thing I realized about cyclists when I got into C3 was most cyclists are snobs.
Snobs. Okay.
They judge you for everything. They judge you for the kit. They judge you for the. So the first time I went for a ride with C3, I was wearing regular shorts. I was wearing obviously not cleats. I hadn't bought cleats at that point. I was wearing a t-shirt, and I had a shoulder bag on.
Of course. That's, I mean, to be honest, that's how most of us start.
Yeah.
I just posted an picture on Instagram last week where I was in 2008. I was on my track pants, t-shirt. By the time that picture was taken, I didn't have the backpack with the water bottle. That phase was also there,
Huh.
and pretty like maybe 500 rupee helmet or
Yeah.
whatever.
You have to let people go through the phases. Don't be judgy.
Yeah.
Let the people who are starting off do their thing and progress.
Yeah.
Let them take their time. Don't try to like clad them in lycra the first time they're on a bike. There's steps to this. And then the first 100K I did. Then also I had the shoulder bag and all. I was doing that with the shoulder bag.
Yeah. I mean, my first 100K was like that. I had a backpack with a water bottle on the side,
Yeah.
that office bag, I guess, and I think I had a dozen bananas or something inside and all that.
So this I like really vividly remember. The fuel I had for the 100K I did was this thing called Sting. This is a drink called
Yeah,
Sting, right?
yeah. My son's favorite drink, I guess.
Really? I don't think children should be drinking that drink.
Drinking. I mean, the elder one is still. I actually discourage him because it has ton of taurine and caffeine.
Caffeine, yeah, it's very strong in caffeine.
Yeah.
And I'm not a person who drinks a lot of coffee, so I'm not desensitized to caffeine like a lot of these other coffee heads are. So the first ride I did, I had an impression that caffeine might be good for performance, and this was like late in the night, right? So I didn't want to fall asleep on the bike. So I don't think I would fall asleep on the bike, but I just didn't want to take a chance. So I took this. I had 2 bottles of Sting in my bag. That's what I fueled with at 50 kilometers. At 50 kilometers, I drank. I think I drank the first one before the ride, and the second one at 50 kilometers. And I was just hyper throughout the ride. And the next day, I could not even sleep in the night. Even the next day, one entire night, I went sleepless due to this.
Yeah.
That's how strong it was. So yeah.
Yeah, if you are,
I'm not sure if Sting should be legal. If anyone's watching it from the government.
I mean, yeah, that's why I heard of it for the first time from my elder son, and he was like, "Hey, we had this thing, and why are you even drinking it? It has like a ton of caffeine and taurine
Yeah.
and all that, No, we went to play football, and there we had with
It's also
friends."
dirt cheap. It's
Yeah.
like 20 or 30 bucks for the small bottle.
Right.
And compared to Red Bull or something like that, I think it's way stronger than Red Bull, and it's also like a lot cheaper. It's basically jet fuel for your body.
Right. Okay. So we were talking about your riding and
Yeah.
people judging you there.
Yeah.
And that, right.
So yeah, judgy people were everywhere, but there were also like considerate people everywhere. So I take everyone's viewpoints. I can see how these judgy people are coming from. I can see where they are coming from. I can see where the considerate people are coming from. So I mean, slowly but steadily, I started moving to the dark side. I started, but like piece by piece, I started getting into bits and pieces of lycra. And then, the first thing that had to come off was the stand, right? I was adamant about keeping the stand on the road bike.
On the road bike?
On the road bike,
Okay,
yeah.
nice.
For the first 3-4 months, everybody would judge me for the road bike. Every person I meet, every road cyclist I meet would ask me to get rid of it. I would just keep it on. Just to piss them off, I would keep it on. And I would still whoop their ass on rides.
Of course.
The thing is, I felt like it was a very convenient thing to have. Otherwise, you would have to lean your bike everywhere. And another thing is, in Kochi, it's all flat. And even the highways that I ride on, it's all flat. So I have a basic understanding. I mean, I have a pretty good understanding of physics. I was like an engineering student. So I realized that the stand is not going to make that much of a difference on flat roads. As it might make a good difference on climbs. It's maybe like 300, 400 grams, that particular stand. But I kept it on for the flats because so everybody would be leaning their bike everywhere, all over the walls. like much to the disdain of all the shopkeepers. They just lean it against their shops and the posts and all, and I just keep it on the stand, far removed from everyone.
Showing off.
Yeah, showing off my Tri-Ban 100RC that can stand on its own legs, unlike your stupid bikes
Yeah.
that needs to lean on somebody.
Crazy. So, how was the riding during that time for you?
So I think I made a lot of improvements in fitness during that time. The first 3-4 months, I didn't have any metrics to go by, so I don't know the numbers per se, but I could feel that maybe. So the 33 kmph ride that I did was a relatively flat ride. It was a pretty hard ride for me. So at that point, towards the end of the ride, I almost bonked. So I remember this point on the ride. There was this slight flyover. So these are like pretty shallow flyovers, like 2%, 2.5%. That's the
Right.
sharpest it gets to. And I still found those climbs a little hard. I was a little heavier at that time. I wouldn't say fat or anything. I was just a little more built, around 77, 78 kilos. Which is okay for my height, but not to be like competitive in the cycling. Competitive level at cycling. So 78, I was happy with my weight, but then I found it hard on the climbs. I didn't expect climbs to be so hard, and these are like pretty shallow climbs. And at one flyover, at one point, I started fading a little bit. I could feel that my eyes were like blurring out a little bit, and I almost went over the side. So. But then I regained control of my senses and just soldiered on after that. But from there, in just like 1 or 1.5 months of riding regularly and riding hard, I was like easily doing like 35 kmph steady, 34 kmph steady. That was like a comfortable pace for me after that. So I made big gains during that time, but I don't have the numbers to show for it because I didn't have a power meter. I didn't even have a heart rate monitor. I think I used to track my rides initially on my phone. I think that's how everybody starts. Just Strava on my phone.
Yeah.
So Strava I had been using even before I started cycling. Oh yeah, there's a little bit of a part that I forgot. So I didn't have time for it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
We have all the time.
Okay. So before I got into this road biking phase, right? So COVID had obviously struck. So during COVID, I was stuck at home. There's this road nearby my home. It's a rail yard, and there's a road adjacent to it, a parallel to it. It's an exact 1 kilometer stretch of just straight road, and it's straight. It's completely straight, parallel to the railway tracks. I used to go on walks there, and I used to also run there. So I wanted to like get better at running again. I was not as good of a runner at that point as I was in school and all.
Because of the gap.
Yeah, because of the gap. I was not regularly training for running or anything. And then my focus was on completely different at that point. I was this whole other rap story. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to get fitter, and running wouldn't even take that much time, right? So I just wanted to get a little fitter, and I picked up skipping quite a bit during quarantine. So in the initial part of the quarantine was really strict, right? You couldn't even get out of your flats, even on the streets, even on the nearby streets. The police would come and they'd just send you back home. So skipping was pretty much the only thing I could do. So I started jumping rope regularly, and then I got quite good at it, I would say. There's this thing called double unders, right? So I could do it maybe around 150 200 double unders in a row, and skipping I could regular skipping I could do it for a long time, and it depends on the pace that you're doing it at. So I used to regularly skip for like 15-20 minutes a day, and that's all the time I had for like exercise and looking after my body at that point. But it was pretty effective, and it brought down my weight a little bit. And then I started running. I started transitioning into running as the quarantine eased up a little bit. So running, I do running, and then so running is a little harder on your body than cycling, right?
Right.
So after maybe 2-3 continuous days of running, you'd want to rest a little bit. So I'd maybe walk a little bit, or maybe I'd cycle. So cycling used to be my recovery thing at that point. At that point, I didn't have the Tri-Ban. I only had the Riverside.
Right.
And running, I started making like steady gains in running. So running, very long distance running wasn't my thing. So like anything above 5K, I was not very strong at. But something like 3K or 1 mile. 1 mile was the distance I used to do a lot of. And then I had this number stuck in my head for a long time. Even before this running thing started during COVID, when I was working in Bangalore, I always wanted to do like a 3-minute 1K. It's a pretty short distance. It's like a VO2 max effort. It's a very strong VO2 max effort. I didn't know anything about VO2 max at that point, or VO2 max efforts at that point, but that's what it was. In retrospect, I realized that's what it was.
Yeah.
So this 3-minute 1K I wanted to really go for, and that's the target I set during quarantine. So I had the first day I went and did on that straightaway road, I did something like 315 or 320. So 15 minutes at that, it was a pretty hard target for me, 3 minutes. And I like slowly started bringing it down. 3:10 I got to, then 3:05, 3:06. And then I hit a little bit of a slump, and then it went back up again. It got back to 3:10. Then I came to Bangalore for a little bit to stay with my friend for a while. And then I used to run regularly here also. I think I'm not sure. There's no science to back this up. It's all bro science. But I think running at the slightly thinner air in Bangalore regularly, and I was also running in sandals at that point. So I hadn't brought my shoes, but I still wanted to run. So I'd run for like a mile or maybe 2 miles in sandals, and I think that really toughened up my legs and feet. So and then the week after I returned, I just made a go for it. And I smashed 3 minutes. I think I got 2:51 at that point. So 2:51 for the kilometer, which I think 2:49 or 2:51, which by the way is Eliud Kipchoge's marathon pace. So I did 1K at that. I'm happy with that. So I also I got a pretty decent mile time. My best mile I got at that point, I think it was around 5:10 or 5:11. I got the mile time. So yeah, that's right before I started cycling. So cycling I found was much easier on the body. So running, it's really like pounding your body, especially at those higher paces. It's really like using your body like a punching bag.
So that was the time you were using Strava, is it?
Yeah,
At that time?
I was using Strava regularly to log my runs and like log my progress. But even when I was doing the long rides on the hybrid, right, the Thrissur rides that I talked about, I was using Strava. But that was like not very frequent. Very sporadically, I'd go on a ride. But yeah, I had a thing for logging, and I wanted to track my progress. But running phase is when I started really using Strava.
Right.
Then the tri-band phase started. I started training regularly, and then I learned about this interval trainings and structure training and all from Solvin. So once that happened, and I really got into it, then Strava became like a really useful tool. I think around that point is when I got my heart rate monitor also. Then I started training by heart rate, and I found that I had a pretty low heart rate for the kind of efforts I was doing. Initially, Solvin and all remarked like, "Is the heart rate monitor correct? It seems to be a little too low."
Right.
So, and that's something I always had about me. So even before I started endurance training and all, my resting heart rate was pretty low. Maybe around the high 40s was where it settled at. And once I started training, it came down even further. So yeah, that's how the structure training process started. Then do you have any questions about that?
No. So how much were you riding during that time? Say before that you were riding say a long ride once in a while, during the weekend or something like that. But how
before
did
that on the hybrid, if you mean the hybrid, I was not riding regularly on weekends or anything. It'll be like once in 2 months I'll do a long ride.
Right.
And then I just ride around the neighborhood. Not enough to have any kind of training stimulus.
Right. So how did the volume look like once you started riding with C3 and stuff?
So C3, I think on weekdays I couldn't afford more than like 1 hour 15 minutes a day. So that's what my usual morning looked like on a weekday when I had work. So 1 hour 15 minutes. That's probably what it was. But it was so what we did was Tuesdays and Thursdays we'd have hard intervals. Wednesday we'd have an easy ride to the airport. Sundays we'd have a long endurance ride. Fridays and Mondays were off, and Saturday we had sprint training. So that's what the usual week looked like for the C3 club. So I stuck to that. So Tuesday and Thursdays I did interval training. So all the weekdays it would be a little over an hour. So we'd do the training, we'd stop for tea. That's how it was. And then weekends we do maybe a 3-hour ride. Right. So that would be like 90-100 Ks. Somewhere around there on the highway, the same highway that I did the Thrissur ride on. We'd go on the highway and return.
Right. So from how many months was this?
So I did maybe around 2 months of this before I did my first race. So I hadn't raced until that point, right? So the first race I did, even a little before the race, there were these couple online events that happened. So that's what basically got me onto the radar for a lot of Kerala cyclists. So there was this online challenge conducted by this club called KEG, KEG, and it's like Kottayam Endurance Group. And then they had this challenge on Republic Day. Republic Day, ride 26 kilometers on Republic Day.
Right.
So it was called the Minnal Challenge. And so all around, you can ride anywhere. So that doesn't really make sense because the speed obviously depends on the terrain quite a bit. But we had pretty quick highways in Kochi. So I did this ride with C3. And then I was pulling the entire time. I had aero bars on. So at that point, right? So what I wanted to do was just go as fast as I can on my cycle. It was still a very utilitarian mindset that I had. I didn't have this like, we should race, I should perform well. I had to just get from point A to point B as fast as I can.
Right.
So an aero bars would get me faster for the same amount of effort. So I got used to aero bars. It's not necessarily because I wanted to be a time trialist or anything, but aero bars were like something I felt would make me much faster for the same amount of effort. And I had aero bars on. I was and for some reason I immediately got comfortable on the aero bars. So a lot of people, even seasoned riders, they're not that comfortable on the aero bars.
Right.
But for me, that problem wasn't there. There was the initial like 10 seconds of wobble, and then I just felt it fit. So on this mineral challenge, I was on the aero bars, but I was pulling almost the entire time, and I averaged around, I think 41.5 I averaged for the 26 kilometers.
Nice.
So that was quite big for me.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is. I mean, I still remember the first time I did my 40 kmph. Now looking back, it was with tailwind, but still it was,
Okay.
it was very, satisfying. It was in BBCH 2013. And we had this from the usual start point on OMR till the Egypt turn. So that was the only year where they had only one way.
One way, okay.
After that or before that is always out and back,
back,
which should be the case,
Yes.
right? And luckily that was the first time I hit 40 kmph, and I was like, yeah,
Pro now.
I was a
Big
pro.
leagues now.
So
Yeah, so
you did 41 kmph.
yeah, that was the so when the results came, that turned out to be the fastest in this. So this was only for riders from the state, from Kerala, and this turned out to be the fastest time. And yeah, that was a little bit of motivation for me.
Right.
And then I trained a little more. So I figured out that my strength was probably more around time trialing and holding a steady power rather than huge surges of power like sprints, for instance. And so then I did my first race. So first race, that's when I stepped onto the scene with a bang.
Right.
So I had watched the race, so I didn't know this racing scene existed at all in Kochi or anywhere else for that matter, or even in Bangalore.
Right.
So in Kochi, I went and watched my first race. As I just started my structured training, I watched my first race, and it was a pretty thrilling experience. So I think it was a time trial. The first race I watched was a time trial. So at that point, I was seeing these really skinny kids. There's this guy called Salvin. He's still like a walking miracle to me. He's about his legs are about this thick. He's still a really good flat time trialist. I would say he's that great at climbing, but it usually should be the other way around, right?
Right. The skinny people.
Somebody who's that skinny, he should be good on the climbs and not so good at the flats. But for some reason, he's super fast in the flats. And I watched these guys do the time trial, and I learned about the different disciplines of racing and all. But the first race I did, that was a road race. So we have this road called Willingdon Road, and it's just about a 2.5 km stretch, I think. So 2.5k out, 2.5k back. So 5 kilometer would be one lap. And the first race I did was about 26 kilometers, I think, 26 or 35 kilometers. Anyway, so it was a pretty epic race, I would say. It was still one of the highlights of my cycling career. So what happened was, I was racing on the tri-band. I had the 1x still. I upgraded the 1x to a 2x later, but at that point I still had the 1x. And the 1x, the thing is, there's no front derailleur, right? So the chain is very susceptible to skipping, like jumping out, falling out. If you have a front derailleur, the front derailleur will hold it to an extent. There's no chain stopper. What's it called? The
chain stopper. I mean, there are a couple of varieties of that, which is like there is a gadget which kind of puts is stuck to the seat tube and then tries to keep the chain in place.
Yeah.
But I mean, that is usually...
Is that like an electronic gadget?
It is not. It's just,
Yeah. I mean, I'm using a chain stopper now. I'm saying at that point, I had neither a chain stopper nor a front derailleur.
Right.
So what happened is, on the Willingdon Road, at one point, there's a railway track. There's a railway crossing, but it's defunct. No trains use it, but there's a track there. And it's a really bumpy part of the road. So, and I'm going at full steam. I think immediately once this race started, I moved ahead. I moved to the front and started going full gas. Like 300, 400 meters I went, railway track, boom, chain drops. I'm like, shit. And then I get off the bicycle, everybody's gone ahead. I get off the bicycle, put it back on. Start racing again. I catch up to these guys. Before the lap ends, I catch up to these guys. So I don't think the group was going very fast, maybe around 36, 37, which was still a very doable pace for me.
Right.
I could solo that pace easily. So yeah, we do the lap, come back, railway track again. Boom, again it drops. I had moved to the front of the group again, and I'm just starting to pick up the pace, and then damn, again the chain drops. I'm super frustrated at this point, and again I get off, I put it back on. So there's I think 5 more laps. So 5 more laps, I again do this arduous process of catching back to the group, and
So it is chain is dropping every lap.
no, not every lap. The first lap it dropped twice.
Okay.
The next couple laps I was more careful.
All right.
The next 3 or 4 laps I really took care to like slow down. Even if it costs me some time, I don't want it to cost like 20 seconds that I have to get off and put the chain back
Right.
on.
Yeah.
So my hands are like full of grease at that point. And yeah, it was not a super nice ride. I still have the photos from it. My hands are covered in grease, and so I did that. So the next couple of laps were fairly smooth. I moved to the front and I formed a breakaway with this guy called Adarsh. You might know him, might not know him. He's a under 23 guy from Kerala.
Right.
Adarsh K. He sometimes comes to Bangalore for races also. He recently had an accident, so he's been off racing for a little bit, but I think he's still getting back into it.
Right.
Getting back into it. So I formed a 2-man breakaway with Adarsh. We started working together. And yeah, I was pulling hard, he was pulling hard. So we formed quite a separation with the rest of the group. And then, then what happens is this final bit of drama. So we go to the final U-turn, come back, and the finish line is somewhere on there. And so I have to cross this railway track once more. I tell Adarsh, so since we're taking turns, right? I tell Adarsh about in the last 2 kilometers something, I tell him, okay, now at this point, I'm not gonna pull you. So let's just ride side by side. These guys are not going to catch up to us now. Let's just ride side by side. I didn't want to give him an advantage. I didn't really want an advantage as well. So I just wanted to be done in a sprint. So I told him, let's just take it to a sprint. And then we are riding side by side. He agreed to that. We are riding side by side. And then finally the railway track, chain drops again for me. He rides on, he gets first. But then I have the cycle with me. I know that the group is maybe around 600 meters behind. But I don't have time to put the chain back on. If I stop to put the chain back on, I'm gonna lose it. So what I do is I roll the bike, I run to the finish. There's about 300 meters to the finish line. I run the entire distance and I cross the finish line running. So I had seen, I think it was the Venki podcast only, the Working Athlete podcast. I had seen Naveen John mention somewhere about you have to carry the bike to the finish line. You cannot just run to the finish line, right? If you don't have the bike in your hands at the finish line, it's not considered a finish.
Yeah.
So I watched this video maybe around 2 weeks or 3 weeks before this. I had this in the back of my mind. So I started running with the bike. So I coasted on the momentum for a little bit. So there was about 300 meters to go. I started running, and then it was a super dramatic finish. I still have like a couple different videos of that. It'll be there on my Instagram if you want to watch it. But it got the crowd so pumped up. It's like nobody had seen this. This is someone running to the finish line like this. And then I came in second. But everybody just considered me the victor there. I think it was a little unfair to Adarsh because he had done a good race.
Right.
But yeah, I was the highlight of that particular race.
So Chris Froome running up the mountain in one of the TDFs is pretty epic. I think this was
He didn't have the bike, right? Did he have the bike?
So, oh yeah, I mean, he didn't. He got. I mean, they caught up to him and gave him the bike later, and then
There was some
then
controversy
he took-
around it, right?
Yeah, there was, but eventually by the time he got to the finish line, he got the bike. And
I think in the episode that you were talking to NJ about this, you
Right.
mentioned Chris Froome.
Correct.
So yeah, it's all there in the back of the head somewhere.
Right.
But yeah, that was a super dramatic finish. That's how I really splashed onto the scene.
That was a pretty amazing intro to the racing. First race.
And I completely wrecked my cleats. I have photos of my cleats from that and the underside of my shoe as well. These things are not built for running, right? It's trashed. Those cleats were done at that point.
Right.
The yellow parts of the cleat were completely gone. I just got these cleats right before this first race. So yeah, that was the first race.
First race.
Super dramatic.
Nice.
The Wellington Island race. This year, I don't think they held it for some reason.
So what I mean, this was your first race. How did that? This was when was this?
This was, if I'm not wrong, February or March 2022.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how did you know what changed after that? In terms of training and racing frequency and stuff.
So one thing was the kit started changing bit by bit. So the 41.5 I did, right? That was on flat shoes. So
Right.
right before the races when I got the cleats, maybe 2-3 weeks before this race. So Solvent told me that these cleats might be a really good investment to make, especially in sprints and all. Flat shoes are not really going to cut it. And the first day I got onto the cleats, I felt super uncomfortable because I used to pedal with the middle part of my feet.
Yeah. I mean, when you are using shoes, usually that is the spot for you tend to use.
And when you're shifting to cleats, it puts a lot of pressure on the calves, right? When you're pedaling with the balls with the feet, your calves has to be engaged. That's not so when you're pedaling with the middle or like the heel. Heel pedaling is like really awkward, even to me. But middle foot pedaling, it doesn't engage the calves as much. So my calves were like burning after the cleat ride, and I thought for a minute that maybe I'm not cut out for like cleat riding. Maybe I'll just race on flat shoes for the rest of my life. Maybe these dudes have it all wrong. But yeah, I eventually got used to it. So some people encouraged me. They told me that you'll get used to it. Everyone faces it at the beginning. And yeah, I got used to it. So yeah, after that, what changed? So I started racing more regularly. That's what mostly changed. And I started, I mean, even before that, I was doing training regularly. I like to stick to a routine. So I kept to the routine, and I guess my numbers were improving, but I have nothing to show for it.
Right.
But yeah, I could see that I was getting more comfortable in faster rides. So then the race I did after that was the Bangalore Amateur, BBCH ITT, Amateur ITT. So that's what got me onto the Bangalore scene. I think a few people noticed that. So I did that on the tri-ban. Again, the tri-ban is the highlight. Everyone notices me, not because I'm good, because I'm riding on a tri-ban. and because I'm also a little good. So, but the tri-ban is the first thing they notice. They turn their noses up first, then they ask me, damn, you're good. So the amateur ITT I did, I was in like full analyst mode at that point. I'm like good with numbers. So I also have this analysis background, right?
Right.
I was
Data science.
Yeah, data science background. We are both data scientists, by the way, if you didn't know. So I was doing full-on analysis about how much faster would you be at 800 meters above sea level compared to like sea level. Kochi is at sea level. Bangalore is at like a higher altitude. And I was right because Bangalore speeds always tend to be a little higher than Kochi speeds because the air is a little thinner here. But then the winds are a lot stronger generally here than there. So some days it makes up for that, but some days you tend to go faster. So I was thinking maybe I can do like a 42 in Kochi. How much would I do here? Maybe I'll do a 43.5, 40. So how much? So 10 it's like around 10% less dense. The air here is around 10% less dense. That would translate to 10% less drag. So you'd I think you'd go about 3% faster for the same effort. 10% power savings is like 3% faster because air and the power ratio is like the cubic relationship, right?
Right.
So 10% less dense air is like 3% faster. And I did all the calculations, came here. I think I wanted to do something like 44 or 44.5. I didn't quite make that because what I didn't expect was the roads to be so rolling.
Correct.
Back in Kochi, it's a lot more flat. Even the risers, they're like 1-2%. Bangalore, they're a little steeper and a little longer.
Correct.
So, and I'm also on a tri-band. So the weight penalty is a little more here. I think I got to something like 42.4, which is still pretty good. I think it's the bar segment was what I raced.
Correct.
The bar ITT
24.5
segment, yeah, on the OMR.
Correct.
So that's the one I did. That was 42.4 I got. I was a little disappointed because I won the amateur one. But the thing is, the elites also had the same race and the same course,
Right.
so I could compare directly with them. So I think Naveen Raj won that day. Imad came second. Third was Vaishak, the MTB rider who also occasionally does road racing, right? So they all of their 3 times were a good bit faster than me. But I think I would have placed 4th or 5th even in the elite. So I saw that I was not good enough to compete with the elites at that point, because I'm thinking the bike at that point. I don't want to think about the bike at all. I know that I'm racing on a tri-band, but I don't want to consider that as part of the equation at all.
Right.
I'm looking at it as I'm this much slower than these guys, so I have to improve a lot. So next week I came on the same segment. I did another effort. I did 43.4. I was 1 kmph faster. That was a good feeling for me. I think I cut down 40 seconds from my previous time.
Right.
There was also another thing though. The first time I did it, the winds were brutal. The 42.4 I did, that was on brutal winds. The next week, the winds were not as hard.
Right.
So the 43.4 was partly due to me knowing the course better, partly due to the lower winds, and probably I put out a little more power as well. I figured out how to like modulate your power when the ups and downs come. So when I started out, I had the thing entirely wrong. I had the plot entirely wrong. I'd go really hard on the descents. The descents is where I would put out the most power, because you get more return for your, like, you go fast, right?
Correct.
It's exciting when you're on descent. It's exciting. You see 46, 47 on the on the speedometer, and you want to go faster. But then I realized it's the ascents that you have to put the power on. Descents is when you should like chill a little bit and get that recovery in.
Right.
So that now I learned later. So I learned to pace myself better on time trials basically. So all that added up to like a 1 kmph faster speed later, 1 week later. And the thing is, when I came to during that point is when, so I had this complete freedom of transport, right? Up until that point, I was a little restricted. I had the hybrid even before when I was in Bangalore, but I had a lot of freedom of movement on the tri-band. So I stayed with a friend of mine for about a month, and I used to ride around. In the night and all, I either ride into the city or maybe I ride on the highway. So that month, I really started training even more regularly. In the morning, every ride would be on the airport road. This was one thing about me in the beginning. I just go hard on every ride. Since my rides were only around 1 hour, 1 hour, 15 minutes long, I'd go super hard every ride. So that was something I did, which, if someone advised me against it, I don't know.
Right.
That's the mindset I was in. You just have to feel it in your legs. After every ride, you just have to be slumped on the couch.
Right.
So, but then it was really regular training, and I guess my body adapted it also. For that month, I would ride on the airport road regularly. Every ride would be around like 40 kmph, 42.4 kmph. That's the average speed it would be on. And eventually, I think this is how I'm like getting slightly introduced to LBB. So I know about these guys. So every time I'm riding in Bangalore, I see some segment. I look there, I look in the segment, I see NJ there. I see some guy or the other from LBB. There'd be Joel Sundaram here. There'd be Shaurya Kaushal somewhere there. So I knew about these names. And eventually, Shaurya reached out to me during that month. He invited me on a group ride. I think you were also there in that group ride.
Right.
You might have not known me, but so I think most people turned around a little before the Nandi turn. But I wanted to do a Nandi climb. So I had done a Nandi climb before. The day after the ITT, right? I had taken the day off of work. So I wanted to do a Nandi climb. I know that it's a very popular destination for cyclists in Bangalore. I wanted to see what the big deal was about. I had never been to Nandi before that. So Nandi ride was something I always wanted to do, even before when I was on the hybrid. But then that never happened for some reason. I couldn't find the time or something. But then I wanted to do it at that point. I went to Nandi. So at that point, I had, what did I have for the gear? Yeah, I had changed the chain ring by then.
Okay.
So I had a 2x, but then I did not have an FD. So yeah, I couldn't shift to the lower ring. It had to be in the bigger ring.
Okay.
So I had to do the Nandi on the big ring. I stopped once in between, and I was not in the mood to go really hard also that day.
Right.
I stopped once in between, took some monkeys pictures and all, continued on. I think the actual ride time was around maybe 27 minutes or something. Then Shaurya and all invited me for their group ride. So everybody turned around a little before the Nandi turn. Shaurya, me, and Ben, we went on to Nandi. They didn't climb Nandi, but they asked me to just send it. Ben obviously asked me to send it. I was not used to the lingo. I was initially confused, send what? But then I figured out that's something they say. Now I've also started using it. So I sent it that day. I think it was, I think my time was 26:26. Which on a tri-band was decent. Not good, not bad. But yeah, I did. But that was my Nandi climb. And after I got to the top, I think I spent a little bit of time there. So yeah, this was my second Nandi climb. That was my first continuous Nandi climb. which a lot of
No,
like,
no taking pictures or anything.
yeah, no taking pictures, a little bit of suffering,
Yeah.
all of that. And I figured out that Bangalore had a very thriving cycling scene because the shut up legs and all, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't find something like that in Kochi and all roads, shut up legs, something like that. And I think I got a couple thumbs up from just onlookers as well as I was climbing. And as I was climbing, Rajiv, who was coming down, he also gave me a thumbs up. He was just bombing down the descent. I feared for his life when he was doing that. How do people do this? At that point, I don't think I still was comfortable that much with descents. Yeah. So that was my first Nandi climb. This was in March end or April beginning. I started riding regularly. Then I went back home. Yeah, that was it around there.
Nice. So the first time I actually heard your name was from Rick Noble. So we were, I think, hanging out, with his friend, our common friend Pochi, and we were talking in general, and then we asked him, what did you and where did you ride this morning? I said, I went to Nandi and paced up John up Nandi. Who is John? I mean, I didn't know you
Yeah.
at that point of time, and it's like, who is John? He said, so he's this kid from Kerala who is very young and he's strong. He can improve quite a bit, but it's quite nice. That's the first time I actually heard about you. And I was asking, how did you know him? It's like, so how did you
Yeah.
meet?
So for the Rick Noble story, I have to rewind a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, the race that really broke me was the first edition of Tour of Thekkady. So there's this race called Tour of Thekkady. They conducted the second edition this time. So I was on my tri-ban. Srinath was there in that race. That's the first time that I'm seeing Srinath. I had heard about Srinath from C3 and some old segments in Kochi and all. I'd see Srinath on. I knew that there was this guy called Srinath. I know that he was a strong climber, but I had no real perspective on how good or bad my climbing abilities were, or how good or bad my long distance abilities were. So most of the rides I do would be under 3 hours, and this is like a 6-hour race. This is like super long. This is like a TDF proper stage, proper TDF stage. It's 145 kilometers long and 3,200 meters of elevation. Yeah, it's a lot of suffering on a day for a bike.
Yeah.
So I did the first edition of Tour of Thekkady. That's the day I realized I had to drop some weight if I want to continue the sport. I suffered my ass off. So to prepare for that, I had gone. I mean, I know that there will be a lot of climbing involved, but all the climbs that were nearby, they were like short climbs, like 800 meters, 1 kilometer. So shorter climbs, guys like me also can cut it, like short punchy climbs. I had a good 3-4 minute power, so I can really punch it up those. But the long steady climbs, the 20-minute climbs or the 25-minute climbs, I didn't really have an idea of how much suffering that would entail.
How to pace yourself.
Yeah,
also
how to pace yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
On the shorter climbs, you just go balls out, right? You cannot do that on the longer climb. So yeah, the first race, this is a funny story. So I went super hard in the beginning. This is like a 6-hour race. I'm going full threshold mode at the start. I'm wondering, why are these guys coming so slow? The race started. I'm going full gas, and I take one slight wrong turn. So again, the group catches up. I mean, I had to catch up with the group again, but still I'm going super hard again. And then we formed a breakaway. This is like in the first hour of a 5-6 hour race. I found a breakaway with Srinath and Renju. Renju from Kerala.
Renju, yeah.
He's a multiple time state champion and all.
Right.
So I found a break with Renju and Srinath. And both of these guys are super skinny climbers. I'm like 77, 78 kilos at that point. So the initial part of the race, the initial hour 15 of that race is rolling. I wouldn't say flat, it's rolling. So I can still cut it with these guys. Then the first major climb started. So that's around 3 kilometers, maybe around 6-7%.
Right.
So it's a pretty serious climb. And I tried to stick with these guys during that climb. So I still don't know my climbing abilities. I've done maybe one Nandi climb, but that's not really enough to know yourself or know your power profile, stuff like that. So I stuck with these guys. I think I was doing probably around, at my weight at that point, to stick with these guys, I probably did around 290, 300 watts. And then my legs were done.
Right.
These guys went ahead. Uh, so, and at that point, if I had any more race experience, what I should have done, the prudent thing to do was draw back, go with the group, try to save some energy. But I am still going for, I'm going to catch up to these guys. So the thing is, after this, right, even if I do catch up to these guys, there's a huge ass climb coming up. There's a Kulamava climb. There's 12 kilometers steady climbing 6%, 6.5% or something, 12 kilometers. It's a long climb. I should have had the wherewithal to like know that even if I catch up to these guys on the rolling section, they are gonna drop me on the climb. But I just kept going hard, went solo, and the Kulama until the Kulama base, I couldn't catch up to them. Kulama, I did maybe around 1-2 kilometers, and my legs said bye bye. My legs had left the chat. I had to get down. I had to start walking, and then I see these guys slowly start passing me. The other bunch was catching up.
Group,
The group was catching up. So Abhinav passed. Then Akshay Kletus passed. These are all guys from Kerala. They're like pretty good level racers. So, and it's with every passing rider, I'm getting discouraged a little more. But then, and I just want to stop at that point because my legs are not turning. After that point, I had a proper bonk, I think, because I can feel the amount of pressure I'm putting on the pedals. I couldn't push like 150 watts after that. I was just like crawling up the climb. It's a pretty serious steep climb too. Some of the parts of the climbs are really steep. Not Kulama, but a couple climbs that come after that. Kulama is a pretty steady 6% grade.
Right.
But anyway, I had to walk, get on the bike. So there are some descents also in between. So those descents I'd obviously be on the bike. Then the next climb would come, and I'd ride for like 1 kilometer up the climb. Then I'd get off again and start walking again. So I took around 7 hours of ride time itself. And yeah, another funny thing, towards at about 5.5, 6 hours into the ride, I was done. And yeah, I had absolutely no clue about fueling. So I had no support vehicle for one, and all I had was like maybe a couple gels or something.
Right.
And I was done with that. And the idea of eating on the bike and how you have to maintain that burn rate, I had no clue of any of these. And so that's all of that led to the bonk. And I was just going too hard in the beginning. And I shouldn't have tried to stay with these skinny dudes at the time. I should have known better. But anyway, at the 5 hour mark or something, I stopped. I went to a hotel. I just wanted to eat something sweet. I ate a lot of pastries, everything sweet I could find, a couple of juices, shakes, pastries. And then I think I had a sugar crash. I slept in that hotel for like 20-25 minutes. I laid my head on the bench, on the desk, and I just slept there. The hotel people were also pretty nice. They let me sleep there. They didn't wake me up or anything. And then I continued on, soldiered on somehow. But then one thing I noticed was, after that, I felt a little better. Right. On the climbs, I could,
You had the carbs, you had the refill.
That's when I realized fueling does matter. You can't just go balls to the walls for 5 hours and not expect your body to crash. So I realized the importance of fueling that day. I also realized the importance of being a little light on the climbs that day. So after that, I realized the drawback of training and racing only on flat sections like Kochi. Kochi is like a coastal area, right? We don't have any big climbs there.
Correct.
So if you only train there, so the first 2-3 months I was training there, I was always fast on the flats. I didn't realize this weakness of mine, up climbs. So I had no option to train on a climb in Kochi, so I decided to get a trainer. So I felt like this would, I had always like prioritized upgrading my body over upgrading the bike. So true. I could use the 80K that I spent on the trainer for a better bike at that point, but I felt like upgrading my body at that point would be a better investment, which has paid off in the long run. I think I made the right decision there. And so I started regularly training on the trainer. And I did some Zwift plans, and I got Zwift. I did some Zwift plans and all. So I could see my numbers like creeping up. And then, yeah, so let's get to the Rick Noble story. So the first time I meet Rick Noble is, I think, the day after I bought the trainer, or the day before I bought the trainer, somewhere around there.
Where did you meet him?
How this happened is like a huge coincidence. Like it's almost like, I don't know, what do you call it? Serendipity.
Right.
How this happened is, there was this race, which one was it? Kolar Express, NJ and Rick. It was a famous one, right? Their sprint finish.
Yeah.
Rick like narrowly beats Naveen, and it was all over the internet. So I'd watched this, and so yeah, I knew there's this super strong Dutch guy racing in India. So I know this name, and I think I checked out his profile a little bit. On some picture or something, I see this agriculture something. He's an agriculture attaché. But I didn't pay too much attention. But this agriculture thing was there in the back of my head. And a couple days later, my mom tells me. So my mom is the agricultural officer
Right.
of Alua. Actually, yeah, she works in Alua. She runs a government farm in Alua. So she tells me there's this group of people coming from the Dutch embassy or something. She told there's this Dutch group that's coming to the farm to pay a visit. I guess they were recommended. Yeah, so this I'm coming to know after this. So I think some politician from the state recommended this farm as a good place to visit to Rick. So I didn't know any of this at the point. So my mom just told me there's this Dutch group. She said group. She didn't even say an individual. She said there's this Dutch group because she was also not sure. She hadn't made direct correspondence with Rick at that point. She told me there's this Dutch group coming to visit the farm. And then so something clicked in my head. I told her, maybe I might know this guy. So because I'd seen it just like, I thought it was too much of a coincidence. This agriculture guy who also cycles, and then this agriculture Dutch group is coming. He had just recently come to India.
Right.
So the Dutch agricultural group is also coming to your farm. So I told her I might know this guy. I mean, not personally. I might know this guy from the internet. Just ask him, just try to establish correspondence with him. Check if his name is Rick something. Check if there is a Rick guy in the group is what I asked her. Because I'm still thinking it's a group. And then a couple of days later, Rick Nobel sends an email about him visiting the farm. And so my mom asked me to, she asked me if I could tag along with her, because I have this common ground of cycling with him. And then I might also be a little more comfortable communicating with him in English and everything. So I was basically the farm guide for him that day. And my mom was there. So on the farm, we talked a lot about agriculture. And in the small gas I would get, I would slide in a cycling question or two. Then so this farm is about 40 minutes from my place. It's in Alua, and I live in a place called Vaitla. It's about maybe 20 kilometers. And on those roads, it takes about 30-40 by cab. So on the return journey, Rick was also going into the city. I was also going into the city. So I shared a cab with him. We talked a lot about cycling during that return. And so, I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing somebody who's raced with the pros, and who's practically a pro.
Right.
So I asked about his experience, asked about everything. So he gave me like tons of valuable advice at that point. I still carry a lot of that to this day. So that's my first meeting with Rick. And him pacing me up Nandi happened quite a bit after that, I think.
Right.
I had already raced with him once at that point. I think the Bangalore Classic happened after that,
Right.
the 160k race, and he won that. Srinath came second. I was still racing on my tri-band at that point, but yeah, we had spoken a little more, so I kind of knew him. And then so I think another time when I was in Bangalore, he asked me if I'm riding, and he was here for like just 2 days or something. So we decided to ride together. I asked him if he could pace me up the climb. So I knew that by this point I had gotten my new bike. Right? I had gotten my new bike. So yeah, he told me, "Oh, congrats on your new bike. Now ready to win some races and all." Because I wasn't able to really perform in the high level races in Bangalore and all on my tri-band.
Right.
I knew that the bike had something to do with it, if not everything, because it's not just the matter that it was not the fastest bike, it's also that it was not reliable.
Right.
So on the rumblers and all, right, the Bangalore Classic, what happened is on the rumbler, I broke a spoke. And then the wheel went out of alignment a little bit. The brakes started rubbing.
Yeah.
Then I was in the chase group. So Rick and Srinath and all had already taken off, but I was in the chase group. But then I had to lose a couple seconds to try to remove the jammed brakes. And then I got completely left out in the open. Then about 80 kilometers I had to do like a TT.
Right. So although the Triban would have, if it was reliable, maybe it would not have held you back that much, right?
Yeah.
But the reliability of equipment plays a big role, especially in races, right? Even the pros, you see them throwing tanks in the races if something goes wrong.
It's heartwarming to see that even pros have these problems.
Yeah. I mean, they have the best equipment, then still they kind of happens. But if it have, if it's something like a tribe that you had, if it happens every race, it
Yeah.
is like practically
Yep. Because even before then, I had this whole chain dropping issue in my first race,
correct.
and the Bangalore Classic it again fails me. Tour of Thekkady, I don't think it. I don't think it gave me much problems. But Bangalore race it failed me again.
You yourself shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
in the-
That was all me. No blame to the triban. I congratulated my triban also that day. 5 hours, 6 hours, it held up to all the challenges. Some sections of the road were pretty bad also, but it gave me no problems.
Right.
But yeah, reliability of the bike is pretty important, especially the amount of trust you have in your equipment. So it's not just you, right? In running, that's the thing I like about running. It's just you, the body, and the shoes, maybe. But in cycling, there's a lot more points of contact in moving parts involved. So a lot more things can go wrong.
Right.
Even if your body is all fine, the equipment can fail you.
So you got a new bike by the time.
Yeah. When did I get the new bike? So the new bike story is again another one. I was in the market for used bikes. I didn't think I could afford like a proper aero. I was trying to get an aero bike because I figured I might use this for time trials as well. Put an aero bar on and use this for time trials. And I figured an aero bar on an aero frame would be much better than a climbing frame. And I was also better suited for flat riding, right? So I wanted to get an aero frame, and the aero good brand aero frames they started like 2 lakh plus. That was a little bit out of my budget. So I got into the market for used bikes, and C3 and quite a few people I knew, they helped me a lot because they got me into all these cycling groups with all these resales happening, and they like pointed me to all these bikes that were selling. And at one point, so there was this guy who came from Dubai, Inshad is the guy, and he worked in the decathlon there. He had brought his bike back home. So the brand I'm riding, Pardis, that's the bike I bought from him. So they don't sell that in India. I think I don't think there's a market for
Yeah, no.
in India.
We-
Yeah,
I
I think they sell in UAE and some like Southeast Asian countries. So he had brought it home, and he didn't want to take it back. I think he was about to get another bike back in Dubai, so he wanted to sell it off here. So I had already went to a couple different places to. I'd gone to Chennai to see about which one was it? Ridley Noah, and there were a couple other bikes that I checked out. But I was kind of starting to get frustrated a little bit because they were either a little bit out of my budget or I didn't really like the bike itself. But this one, I got on it and it was well within my budget. It was about 1.2 lakhs. That's the 1.3 is what he quoted, I think. And then I lowballed him to 1.2. It was not much of a low ball because the MRP on that bike is not much more than 1.25 or anything. But then if I bought it from outside, I'd have to go through the whole hassle of bringing it home, all
Customs
the
and all
customs.
that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I figured he had already brought it home, so I might as well give him the price. And he threw in a couple of other goodies as well, like the bike pack that I still use to this day, and there was quite a few other things. So I thought for like 1.2 this is a good purchase. I went to Malappuram. It's a different district. I stayed. So I took a look at the bike in the morning. I took it for a ride. He had come in a car. I took it for a ride. There was like a slightly hilly area. I immediately felt good on the bike. And then I had work that day. Until evening, I had time to decide if I would buy this bike or not because I had to return the same day. And I had to make a decision. Yeah, I told him. I think there were like some minor squabbles about the price and everything. But eventually, we agreed upon 1.2. I took the bike home. And then I really like the bike. Yeah, it's very reliable too, I believe. It hasn't given me any major problems. So yeah, that was the new bike story. And then after that, Rick was in Bangalore for a bit, and he asked me if I'm riding. So I asked him if he could pace me up Nandi. I knew that I could do a much better time because one, I had been doing structure training on Swift for quite some time. I had dropped a lot of weight. I think I was only around 72, 73 kilos at that point. It was quite a step down. I mean, quite a step up from the previous 77, 78 that I did my first Nandi climbs on. So I asked him to pace me up, and yeah, he paced me quite well. So he was very perceptive of where I was starting to fade and where I was struggling. So that's important, right? He cannot just go fast. He can do a much faster Nandi climb.
Of course, yeah.
But his job was to pace that day, and he did it super well. So I did like a 23:34. That was my that was actually my Nandi PR until today. Today when I broke it. Today is the day I broke it. So to someone's watching, there was this Nandi Namma Nandi race today. And today I got my Nandi PR. I broke my Nandi PR by.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. I'll leave it to Bikey Venky to order that conversation. But yeah, that's the whole Rick Noble situation, and we got to know each other a lot more after that. I'd meet him in a couple races after that, and sadly he's returning, right? I think his next stint is in Korea, I believe.
No, I haven't caught up
Okay.
with him recently.
I think he's only in India for like a couple more months,
Nah,
or maybe
okay.
even a couple more weeks. Not sure, but yeah, he's leaving soon. Is the
Right.
thing.
So you ended up sharing a podium with him recently. And
Yeah.
that is nice to see.
Yeah, that was like a good ribbon to that story. The Rick arc.
Correct. So this was in the Hassan
Hassan race, yeah,
Express,
it was a
right?
recent one.
Yeah, that was also quite a close finish.
Super close finish.
I saw the finish line video and like me and Promise were like okay, oh
Should be doing inky pinky ponky here. Coin toss. What was gonna was that close? The Rick and Naveen's finish. It was even closer than that, right?
no, yours was closer than
Yeah, I'm
that.
saying
Yeah,
this was even closer than that.
correct.
It was like 1 or 2 centimeters.
If the line was just maybe another 5 centimeters
Ahead.
out,
Yeah.
he would have got it
Easily,
Yeah.
because Sudey was coming like a cannonball. He was coming
Right.
at like some at least 10 kmph faster he was than me.
Correct.
He's Sudey from Kerala, is an under 23 state champion. Is a super strong sprinter. So at the finish line, in other races, so in nationals and all, he's not in the same category as me. But in other races in the state, I usually find myself competing against him. And then even in BBCH races, he is there. So one thing I've learned about Sudey is if you take him to the finish line, he's gonna outsprint you. So
Definitely.
the thing to do is drop him before the finish line.
Right. Nice. So let's talk about the race today. You came in like this morning. You landed this morning and raced, and let's talk about that.
Okay, let's maybe go a little before that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
sure.
had this whole. I've been doing a lot of races recently.
Hmm.
In the last 8 weeks, I've done 8 races. I took
8 weeks and
8
eight
yeah.
races.
I didn't race on one weekend, but to make up for that, I did 2 races the next weekend. So it's 8 weeks and 8 races. So this whole
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah.
yeah. So the whole thing started with the nationals. Maybe let's talk about nationals.
Yeah.
I'll go into it a little bit. The nationals was not great for me. Nationals.
So the first year you got into cycling, you ended up in nationals
Yeah.
racing. So let's talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was
So,
it?
okay, so there's the states that I should talk about. I shouldn't miss that, right? Okay, let's rewind a little bit and go back to the state championship.
Yeah.
I'm still on my tri-ban at that point. So, I had the tri-ban with the aero bars on, and I went there in my usual fashion. So at that point I didn't have a bike bag. I'm just lugging around the bicycle as it is. I had practice traveling with the bike for a couple of the Bangalore races. And what I'd do is on Bangalore races, I'd be coming in a Volvo or whatever the case. I just dump the bicycle in the undercarriage, and I'd maybe remove the wheels. It'd just be lying flat. And as an alu frame, it didn't have to be like coddled too much, so I was fine with it. Maybe a couple of scratches here and there, but it worked for me. So the state championship race, I couldn't get a bus with an undercarriage. This was like a low floor bus, so low floor bus don't have undercarriages, right? So, but this was like a late night bus, some 3 a.m. bus I got. I like traveling when everybody is asleep. One is like a lot less crowded and you don't just face traffic jams all over the place. And my sleep is like really messed up. So anyway, I prefer traveling in the night. So I went to state championships, and there were all these seasoned riders there. But so Akshay, Cletus, there's the Anis Zain, all of these guys were there. So I'm on a tri-ban. I'm a little outgunned in that respect. A lot of these guys have TT bikes. I think Anis and Akshay Cletus both were riding on road bikes with TT bars on, which was the same thing I was doing, but I'm still on a tri-ban. So, and this course is a very rolling course.
Okay.
It's not like long uphills and long downhills like Bangalore is. It's short uphills and short downhills, but they are still pretty steep. I think it kicks up to like 4 or 5% on the uphills, and then it's downhill, super fast downhills. And the winds are crazy on this course because it's a coastal area. It's Thiruvananthapuram, and it's right beside the beach. So the very strong winds plus this up and down. So I did my race on the tri-ban. And yeah, I won that. So that was like a big deal because somebody shared this. So I had this photo of me on the TT position on the triband. I had taken the day before the race and I had posted it somewhere on Instagram. Somebody found this and somebody made a big ass post saying, "Let me introduce to you the state champion of Kerala. He's an inspiration to everybody who all the kids." Uh, and this was something I stood up for because I do believe that the man is a lot more important than the machine in the man machine equation in the biking racing scene. And so this post was aligned with that. So a lot of kids, right? They want the highest possible end equipment. Nobody wants to ride without carbon wheels,
Right. Yeah.
and I do honestly believe that a lot of people think it makes more difference than it actually does. So here I am riding on like stock Tri-Band wheels, and the only upgrade I've made at that point is the cleat pedals, obviously, and I have a 2x crank.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the only two upgrades I've done, and then there's obviously the aero bar. And I won on that. I think Anis was maybe around 16 or 17 seconds behind me, and Akshay Cletus, who came third, was about 45 seconds behind me. So yeah, I had a decent gap on them, but not huge. But still, this post like went semi-viral. It was being posted on a lot of cycling groups, and then in the national, somebody so some the people obviously got to know that I can perform well. So with better equipment, I would be obviously much faster. So there's a club called RBZ in Ernakulam. So the owner of the club, he reached so I reached out to him and I asked him if he could, because I don't want to go to nationals on a tri-band. I mean, what am I doing?
Yeah.
I can do it in the States, but I cannot do that bullshit in the nationals. They're like way stronger riders. So if I'm going to nationals, if I'm taking all that trouble, I want to do the best possible nationals. But I couldn't afford a TT bike at that time. So I reached out to him. I asked him if I could get a TT bike from him, and he graciously like conceded and let me use the TT bike that he usually only reserves for his team riders. But I'm not a part of his team.
Right.
Still I'm not. But he let me use that TT bike, and it was a Dolan. It's a Dolan bike. It was a good fast TT bike with whole disc wheels and all.
Right.
This is like some 8-9 lakh bike. I've never seen.
Yeah.
I've never rode on bikes in that range before. I'm super skittish on this bike. Any part I touch, any scratch, dent I make is like 50K. I cannot afford that kind of thing.
Dolan frames are usually found on the track, I think, more
Yeah,
than
yeah,
the
yeah.
road. Yeah.
So the club, they have both track riders as well as road riders, and some people who do both.
Yeah.
And there's also MTB riders. So since they have this track background, and I think they try to sell a lot of Dolans.
Right.
Most of the bikes I've seen in that store are Dolans. So I rode on this, but it was the nationals was a fiasco for me because state camp went fine. Mostly because state camp didn't really interfere with. So I went there late. I had this excuse that I'm a working professional. I cannot just spend months on in the state camp because all the kids they'd got to camp 3-4 weeks before and they'd completely get into their mode of training, which I feel is a little antiquated. They don't use power meters. They still go by cadence and speed and all. 40K. It depends on the road, right?
Right.
Speed is not a good
Yeah,
metric
they
to
have
train on.
their own
Yeah.
older methods.
Yeah. So, and I'm doing, so I really got the hang of like structured training and using power and HR for training and all. I learned most of it by myself, and I'm hugely indebted to two people for this. How I learned most of it was, obviously I see videos on YouTube and all, but something that's closer to the scene that I could do was NJ, right? NJ and Joel.
Right.
These guys, they upload all the data to Strava. They don't hide data.
Right.
So a lot of and they also like give detailed posts about their training and methods and all.
Correct.
So I learned a lot from these two guys, Strava. Joel especially, because I felt like he was a rider who's very similar to my profile and my weight and my build and all. NJ, I felt like was a little above, I was punching a little above my weight. But still, you can learn from riders at all levels. But NJ is somebody who's like, he's super meticulous, right?
Right.
He takes care of all the details. He's a very detail-oriented person. So I could learn a lot from these two guys' profiles. And then, so I was in structured training. So I felt like if I went to the state camp training, it would be taking me a step down. So I wanted to avoid it for as far as possible. I don't know if any state camp people are listening. Anyway, so I went there, I think 1 or 2 weeks before the nationals. But thankfully they let us do our own training because there really wasn't enough time to get into a completely different regimen of training. So they let us do our own training, especially the seniors. I was in the elite, and then Sudev, Anis was also an elite. So Anis, Sudev, and elite. Anis, Sudev, and me most of the time trained together. So we train on the same road that the state national. So I mean the state championship was held at, and then it was like 1-2 weeks of pretty hard riding. I was in really good fitness at that point. Then I went to the nationals. The nationals is when a lot of shit started like going off the hinge. Like people started getting food poisoning left and right. The travel was horrible, just jamming people into trains, and we don't have any extra seats for people and the bikes, right? So everybody's there's like 20-24 people, each with their own bikes, and some people even have two bikes. The first thing that threw me completely off the state camp was when I told them I needed to take two bikes, one for the road race and one for the TT. They were like completely foreign to this concept of having a separate bike for TT. They're like, why not? Everybody else is Nobody does this. I've never seen anybody use two bikes at the nationals. Why do you need two bikes? That was the question. So immediately I was thrown off because you're training all year for this one event, and then they don't really care about it. I think I don't know. I'm not going to talk too much trash about them. If I start, I'm not going to stop. But still, and then the food and the accommodation and the travel, all of that was pretty horrible. And so they've got food poisoned. Akshay Cletus, he was focusing only on the time trial. He had recently bought a time trial bike. He only wanted to do the time trial. So he had come third in the States. Usually it's the 1 and 2 that goes for the time trial, right? But Anis didn't have a TT bike, so he didn't want to do the time trial. So he gave that position to Akshay. He had bought a TT bike. He was training religiously on it. He came to the nationals, and the one event he prepared for, he was completely down with food poisoning. Yeah, he didn't even leave the hotel room at that day. And this is another thing on the nationals. The place they gave us, what was this nationals? Nasik. So the place they gave us for the accommodation, super horrible. The toilets completely unusable. You cannot even step into the bathrooms. It's that bad. So this was some kind of ashram, and all of us practically protested. And the state, so we offered to pay out of our own pockets to stay in an external hotel because we want to go to toilets. We don't want to go to a race with constipation. That's how bad the bathrooms were. And then until the night, until the very night, I think we got there in the morning. This is another thing. We had no idea about the race. I think we got there one day before the race, and the juniors, they had never seen the race course before the actual race. The seniors, we saw a small part of the race. They let us go. We did a small part of the race. We did a recce. So Dave, myself, Anis, and all, we did a small recce. But still, that's not enough. You have to really learn the course on an event like this. And we asked to be moved to a different hotel, but then the state camp people like post a huge amount of resistance to it. They're like, and probably maybe I should have looked out for the juniors more, but then I also wanted to perform well in my event. So I asked them if I am a full grown man, right? These are small kids, so yeah, I can understand that they're concerned about their safety. I told them, Sudev, me and all, we're like adults. Can we stay in a separate place? We'll pay out of our own pockets. No, please let us do this. And they wouldn't even concede to that. They just wanted us to stay with them. They're like taking out these old ass excuses of if something happens to you, then we are going to be held responsible. Talking about like 26, 27-year-old people. Anyway, so yeah, we practically protested. And the worst thing is, I wouldn't say the worst thing because it was still a good thing that happened. The day before the race, at some 7 p.m. or 6 p.m., they are telling us, okay, we can move. We have finally agreed, and this is we should be focusing on sleep and recovery and all the day before the race, and we are like moving to a hotel that is 2 km from here. We're carrying our bikes, we are like jamming it into autos, and yeah, that was the day before the race. After all of this, my Nats performance was not great. I think I came 16th or something in the Nats ITT. So in the road race, I had like a small crash situation, so I finished behind the bunch, so that was also not great. So I fell into a little bit of a low period after the nationals. I felt like, what's the point? If this is all going to happen after a whole year of training. There was not a whole year of training, maybe like 7-8 months of training.
Dude, this is like, first year of
I know.
cycling. What are you talking about?
Yeah, people train for years for this event, but I guess I had like a little too much of a big expectation of myself. But anyway, I could not perform up to my level of expectation, and I got into a little bit of a low period. I focused a little bit more on work during that period. So after the nationals, 1.5 month period, I didn't train much. I just ate to my fill. I got a little fat. I mean, by fat, I mean like to my prior weight, my 77, 78 kg range,
Right.
from my 71, 72 that I was for the nationals. So 78, around there. But my fitness also dropped quite a bit. It's not just about the weight, right?
Right.
It's also about the body composition. You can be 78 with a lot of muscle, and you can also be 78 with a lot of flab. So I think it was the latter, to like leaning towards the latter at that point. And then that was a low point. And then I did Tour of Thekkady second edition. So for this one, I convinced the entire team to come over. This was me, Joel, Shaurya, Ben, 4 of us. So 3 of us has to finish, and the 4th man is like a reserve rider. Unfortunately, Shaurya got into a crash in that race at the very beginning. The first hour or something, he got into a
Right.
crash.
Yeah.
So then it was just up to me, Joel, and Ben. So during that race, I had started training, taking training a little more seriously, maybe a month before the race, because I know that I'm not gonna like put myself through the hell that I put myself through the year
Last
before
year,
that.
yeah.
I have to prepare for this a little bit. But then 1 month I couldn't bring my weight down that much, and then right before the race, carb loading, everything, I did that Tour of Thekkady at 80 kgs. So the year before I did it at 77 kgs. This year I did it 80 kgs. So it was heavier. It should have been worse, but I knew a lot more about racing, nutrition, all that stuff. So it wasn't worse. I had a pretty decent time. I think I finished maybe 10 minutes behind Joel. Some 550 or something I got. 545, 550, somewhere around there I finished, which is a pretty respectable time for somebody at my weight, especially.
No stopping for
Yeah.
food, no
Yeah,
sleeping. Nothing.
Sleep. Something about me is, I think in a couple of recent races I have been able to sleep, maybe 4 or 5 hours. But usually for races I'm completely sleepless until these couple races, recent races. I'm usually completely sleepless before races. Some reason my body just refuses to sleep. I'm just too concerned about getting in enough sleep, and then my body worries itself into not sleeping at all.
Right.
Which is, yeah. So Tour of Thekkady also was pretty much the same. But this was good motivation for me, because even at 80 kgs I did this whole ass climbing race, 6-hour race, and I didn't bonk at any point, and I did almost all the climbs at like steady power. I didn't fade towards the end. I learned how to pace myself. So on the first climb, on the first long climb, quite a few guys dropped me. So but then I pulled them back one by one. So these guys did the same thing that I did the year prior. They went too hard in the beginning, and then they faded afterwards. So I started pulling them back. In the end, I finished 5th overall. I think Abhinav finished first. He finished in some like 5:20, 5:18. Then Joel finished. Joel was also not in the best climbing shape at that point. We were all just coming back from national, and Joel had the injury also, right?
Right.
During nationals.
He had a crash.
Yeah,
in
he had just
nationals.
recently started coming back. His power numbers were there, but I think he was also on the heavier side, some 75, 76 kilos at that point. So yeah. Then Shaurya was the person I was counting on to have the best time.
Correct.
Shaurya, I felt, could keep up with Abhinav also. I thought, but then he had the crash. So so me and Joel have already finished, and then the other people are finishing. So we had team classification as well as individual classification. Individual classification, Abhinav won, and after Abhinav won, the second person in the year prior, all the competition was in the individual category. So this year, everybody thought they'd be smart, and everybody entered the team category. All the competition came in the team category this time. There was absolutely no one in the individual category except for Abhinav. After Abhinav finished at 5:18, the next person came after 1 hour. The second person came in 1 hour after that. But the team category was pretty competitive. The team who came first was Renju's team, Renju, Akshay Klitas, Sudhi Chandran, who I believe had a crash, or no, not a crash, some mechanical failure he had. And there was this one guy called Rajul. He also had some mechanical troubles, but I finished the race with him. I outsprinted him at the end, but still I finished 5th overall. And so I am at the finish line with Joel, and then Ben has to finish. So these guys have already finished. The first team has already come, but the third team has not finished. So 3 people have to finish, right? It's not 3 people finishing. They take the ranks and they add up the ranks. The ranks of finishing.
Answer the time.
Not the time. They do not consider the time at all.
Oh.
The position you finish in.
Okay.
Out of all the team entrants, what position do you finish in? So in the team entrance, Joel finished first. Second, I believe, was Akshay Klitas. Then Renju finished. 4th was me in the team classification. Overall, I finished 5th because Abhinav came first.
Right.
So we had 2 and 3 was Renju's team. Then I finished with Rajul. He was 5th. So sorry, it's not Rajul. It's Radul. My bad. Rajul is a completely different guy. So it's Radul. So Radul finished 5th. So 2, 3, and 5 Renju's team has. So that's a total rank of 10. Now Joel finished first. I finished 4th. So we have a total of 5. And so we are definitely going to be second. because a couple guys have already finished after that, but the second place is not decided yet. So we are making a phone call to Ben. Ben, haul your ass here. Get here as fast as possible. We want this money. We want second. We don't want third. So first is gone. And Ben, I think, was chilling a little bit at that point. But then we asked him to haul ass, and then he really did a really good effort, and he finished it. He got us the second. So that race was all, the second place we got was from Ben only that day. So that happened, and then Joel and Shaurya, they motivated me quite a bit during that race. So Joel, we were having a conversation with his dad and all, and Shaurya told me this is your so the first year. Okay, that didn't go according to plan. The nationals was a little bad, but this is your second year. You know a lot more about racing. You have more experience. So consider this your year. You have to race more. Don't just drop it. Race more, you'll start to win more. So I took that to heart. And then Joel also gave me quite a bit of motivation at the end of the race. So you're talking to his dad, and he spoke to his dad like, yeah, this is a super strong guy. Like he has a he's naturally very strong. He like even without training, he was pretty strong. So all that convinced me to maybe make another go for it. And then a little bit of the week after that is the bar handicap race that we did. So that race, I had already started dropping quite a bit of weight. I think I was maybe around 74. Yeah, after Tour of Thekkady. How many weeks after Tour of Thekkady was bar handicap race?
Maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks, I think. 2 weeks or 3 weeks tops. But I had already started losing quite a bit of weight, and Joel doesn't agree with my methods of losing weight because I lose and gain weight really fast. I think it also has to do with the nature of my body. It just fluctuates quite a bit. It's not that hard for me to gain weight. I'm not the kind of person who just stays skinnier year round without trying. If I eat and if I don't exercise, I'm gonna get fat. But on the flip
Same
side,
here, dude. Same here. But you know, as you age, like I'm now 45 plus, it's very hard to lose weight.
huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, the metabolism is gonna catch up.
yeah.
But I've never had that like super high metabolism like people like Srinath and all, right? They eat shit tons of food. he eats probably twice as much as I eat, and he still stays like a twig. And Joel is not somebody who's like that. Joel also can gain weight. He has been fat at points in his life. I have not truly been fat, but that's only because I've been active all my life. If I let myself go and stop being active, I'm gonna get fat. I'm sure of it.
Right.
So I'm also kind of entrapped in this lifestyle. I have to be active. I have to put my body through a lot of stuff to stay fit. But when I'm fit, I am fitter than most. That's also on the flip side. And I can get fit also pretty quickly. My body swings either way pretty fast. It can get fat really fast. It can also get skinny really fast. And I think either way, when it swings, I don't lose a lot of power. Some people like immediately lose a lot of power, right? So I think my power is pretty like steady. It doesn't depend a lot on the weight. Yeah, so I had started losing weight for the bar race. So I did the bar race. Bar race, you would know, right? Joel and me did a 2-man breakaway, and we had a big lead on the other guys.
Right.
Yeah, we finished in fine fashion. Joel did a lot of the pulling that day. My fitness was still not where it should have been. But yeah, he let me have the win, and that was great.
It was great to watch you both, go at it. It
Yeah.
was nice.
And Joel was in full on like, let's destroy these other dudes mindset. He wanted a 5-minute lead or nothing else.
I think you guys managed to
Yeah, it was 5 minute lead only. We got a 5-minute lead only. It was 5 something or maybe 4 something. High 4s or low 5s. We got a like pretty close to 5-minute lead. But I suffered quite a bit on that day. Then I decided, so yeah. I mean, one big thing I have was that freedom of mobility. So I can work from anywhere. So I wanted to maybe switch things up a little bit. So I went to Ooty. 3 weeks I spent in Ooty. It's Srinath's place. SL7 I spent there. And I rode really religiously there. 2 hours on work days and like 3.5, 4 hours on the weekends. And this would all be like climbing, right? So I climbed and I adapted to altitude really quickly also. So you can really see it in your heart rate.
Right.
So the first couple of days the heart rate goes really high, but then it starts coming down. I'm still not sure how it dropped that much because my heart rate for the same power, once I got acclimated to the altitude, was like 15 to 20 BPM lower than what's it at sea level. What is at sea level? It got really low. Like I'd be doing threshold efforts at like 154 BPM, and I could feel the effort in my legs, but my HR still wouldn't rise. I think it had to do with the cooler climate and then the altitude, obviously. But I acclimated pretty quickly, and I really got hooked on the Ooty. I mean, Ooty is beautiful. It's hard
It
not to ride
is
in Ooty.
heavenly when,
Yeah.
especially there, in good weather if it is not
Yeah, yeah.
raining, right?
The
Yeah.
first couple of weeks I was there was practically no rain. It was the ideal weather.
Hmm.
And the Srinath's place is also a bit outside the town, out the main city, so you can avoid the whole tourist situation there,
Right.
and it is peaceful. So it's practically heaven for anybody who cycling in South India and not been to Ooty. Please do yourself a favor and go to Ooty.
Yeah, yeah. Srinath's place, SL7 training, high altitude training is a great
Yeah.
way to get into riding in Ooty as well.
Yes.
Yeah, he will be there to kind of guide
Yes.
you and all that.
He gives you routes. He gives you, like, if you want the diet plans, he'll give you that. So any cycling requirement he can meet from there.
Yeah.
So you'll get a lot of like experience and help from him. Yeah. So the 3 weeks I spent in Ooty, I think that bumped my fitness up quite a bit even further after the handicap race. So after I returned from Ooty, I was in like full on destroy mode. I wanna race now. So I've been riding quite a bit. I think my fitness is where it needs to be. Now I wanna race. So every weekend after that, I've been racing, except for this one last weekend I took a break. But yeah, five weekends after that I had continuous races. The sixth weekend, yeah, I took a break. Then again, seventh, eighth, I think, yeah. So
How did those races go?
yeah, so I've
Won
been,
everything?
huh? I didn't win everything. I got a podium in everything. It was either winning or a podium in everything. So I don't have a second place position yet. It's all either one or three. Which is a little weird if you think about it. But the bar handicap race, I was one. Then there was, what was the first one I did after that? Man, after coming back,
I mean, Hassan race was one thing in between.
yeah, I'll go in order. So the first thing I did was this race in Goa. So Goa, there was a race, the Equipe Goa race.
Oh yeah. You guys went
Yeah.
for that, yeah.
Yeah, the LVP team went for that.
Correct.
Joel Fashion had a lot of mechanical issues, and he has the worst luck I've seen in any human being.
But he still hangs in there,
he
bounces
bounces back really fast. Yeah. There's also another thing I admire about him. I've learned that from him as well. Things don't necessarily go to plan, but you have to be ready to bounce back.
Correct.
Don't just get crushed whenever the slightest thing goes bad.
Yeah.
And after the nationals, right, the way he bounced back was like super impressive and eye-opening to me.
That crash was really bad.
Yeah, it's 1 year of training that's gone in the blink of an eye, and then the 2 weeks later he was like doing 46 kmph on an ITT in the Merkix position.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super like inspirational.
Right.
I'll say that. So there was the
Goa race.
Goa race. After that, which one was it? Then I did a race in Kerala after that. Yeah, the Churam race, the Wayanad Churam race. Oh, that was a big one for me because traditionally I was a bad climber, but then the Ooty period got me into the realm of a decent to good, I would say even a good climber. So I've been climbing every day.
Slowly mountain goat.
Yeah, slowly transitioning from the buffalo/gore to a goat. And I was also losing mad weight there. I think I was around 71, 70-ish around that point. So Goa race, I came third. So Chinmay took the win. Jewel came second. I came third. Then there was the Churam race, which I won. There was a Somesh from Cyclopedia who stuck with me till the end, and then I outkicked him. Then I did the Hassan race. The Hassan race, I'm very pleased with the third that I got in that because the competition was completely different. Right? You have this dude Rick here. Then again, obviously Chinmay is super strong.
Yeah.
Joel again crashes, but yeah. But that until by that point, I'm like slowly learning to take control of races. You cannot be just like a passive observer of everything. You have to take charge in some situations. You have to control the outcome, and yeah. So towards the end, so Rick and Chinmay are already gone, and I was in the bunch. I was pulling quite a bit. I mean, I pull a lot more than I need to in races because I feel safer there. At the front, a lot less bad stuff is likely to happen, right? Accidents are a lot less likely at the front, but you're also using a lot more energy. But for my physiology, I think that's a little more suited because I steady state power, maybe 220 watts for a long time is not a problem for me. But huge surges and like trying to chase wheels, stuff like that. And I feel like that's a good trade-off, but yeah, I'll have to learn to get a little more comfortable in the
No,
punch.
with more experience and more, more training and more situational
Awareness, yeah.
awareness, you will learn all this and you'll
Yep.
get better at all this.
Yeah. So I have to obviously learn to be more conservative with my energy in races rather than just riding in the front all the time. But I was riding a lot in the front, but about 1.2 or about 1.4 K2, I believe. I decided to attack. There was this slight riser. I attacked there. I got a separation. I held about 370, 380 for the last 2.5 minutes for that. But then these guys were slowly pulling me back. So this is the race that I had the close finish with Sudev in. Hassan race. I'm turning back. Like every 10 seconds. I'm turning back to see who's coming. And every time I'm seeing Vincent, I think Vincent from Equipe. He's like at least 50 to 60 meters behind me. So it's no threat. I know that he won't be catching up. And I turned back at least 6-7 times. And at the finish line, suddenly this guy comes out of nowhere. I still have to know, to this day, I have no idea how I never saw him on all those times of looking back. But I think he hid in my blind spot. I was turning back in the same direction all the time. So I think he hid towards this side and I never noticed him coming up. Anyway, he went by me in a flash. And for a long time, neither of us knew who won because it was that close. Even in the video, it was hard to make out.
Yeah.
We just had to rely on the...
We had to look at the video like for 10 times to kind of,
Yeah.
be certain. Yeah.
Because if you see it in real time, it looks like Sudev obviously won.
Right.
Trailblazers had posted a story about who do you think won. Everybody said Sudev.
Yeah.
I think some 70% said Sudev,
Yeah,
30% was me.
it is very easy to see. But if it was like the finish line was like another 2
Couple
centimeters
ahead,
out,
yeah,
he
would
would have won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was coming so much faster than me, but luckily I crossed it
Got-
slightly before that.
Yeah, I got to the finish line.
Because
first.
I started a little too early. Those 1.4 Ks I've done.
You were fading at that time, and
Yeah.
he was like
I was
actually
really
like-
fading.
Yeah.
I had faded like 400, 500 meters before the finish line. I was just holding on.
Yeah.
And then this guy, he's mad crafty. He'll just stay behind. Boom. He'll go on a sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a
so
good
he did
sprinter,
this-
yeah.
Very good sprinter, yeah, I would say. And he's also like, I mean, these gifts have given him these Shaurya and all have given him the nickname Rocky because he can push himself to 120%. I don't think a lot of humans are capable of pushing themselves to the fringes of their own limits like that. I cannot. It's also, I think, has to do with my power profile because I'm good at like long steady state efforts, which you cannot just push yourself that hard in. But this guy, the first 4 or 5 races that I saw him in, after every race he was like plastered on the floor, dead kind of thing. Even the Willingdon race, right? My first race, this guy was the guy who came third. So Adarsh came first, I came second. He won in the sprint, and he was on the floor. He was on the floor for like every race I saw him in. So props to you, Sudev, for that.
Yeah, yeah. So after Hassan and what else were you?
After Hassan, which one did I do? After Hassan, I did another race in Kerala, which was the Cafe Works. That ITT was there. There was an ITT. But that was a really dangerous race. It's probably the most dangerous race I've done, despite it being an ITT. ITTs are supposed to be safe, right? But this was on the Calicut Beach Road, and there was huge amount of traffic. It was on a Sunday beach road, and the problem is people want to go to the beach. And this road is parallel to the beach. So everybody that wants to go to the beach, they have to cross this road. So there's a huge amount of pedestrians. Then there's this random lorries going along. So there was quite a sketchy race. But then those guys, they really don't have a better road to conduct an ITT on. I've suggested to them to conduct maybe a road race. They have like good rolling terrain at a different part of a little removed from the city, which they can use for like good road races. So yeah.
I mean, even if it is rolling, you can, if it is not much traffic, you can do 3T.
TT also, yeah. But I think the thing is, on the beach road is pretty simple to organize. So these are just like 3-4 guys. Cafe Works Chat is like a tight-knit group of like bicycle enthusiasts and former racers and racers now.
Right.
Anis, right? I told you about Anis, who came second in the States. He's recently got married and he's taken a slight step back from cycling for a bit. But he's super passionate about cycling. All these guys are super passionate about cycling and also the mechanicking side of it. So they want to build a racing culture in Kozhikode or Calicut as the anglicized version of it. And so kind of like what BBCH has here. BBCH they like there's no prices, right?
Yeah.
It's a big thing about BBCH races. No
Yeah.
prices, but still it pulls in races from over the country.
All over the country.
Yeah, all the best races come from BBCH races. They want to build a similar culture. So in Kerala, a lot of the races are too focused on the prize money. They don't want to race the race. They don't want to race for the win. They want to race for the money. And Cafe Workshop wants to change that a little bit, and they are trying to like bring their racing culture up. Regular races, regular ITTs. So I went for that. But when I got to win there, I mean, there was not much competition. The strong guys like Sudev and all, they were not there. What did I do after that? After the Cafe Workshop ITT, starting to get too many to count. Oh, there was this fun race in Palakkad. This is called the Nandi Race. It had good price amount also. It's not like I don't want the money. I mean, I could use the money, but still, I enjoy the win as much as I enjoy the money. So I will beat your ass for free, and I'll beat your ass for money also. Doesn't matter. So the Palakkad race, there was a rolling terrain. I feel like my strongest performance are on rolling terrain rather than the purely flat ones. I think my power profile is a little bit of a puncher, not a pure roller. So on punchy, small climbs, small distance kind of thing, I can really punch it up hard on the climbs and then chill on the distance. Rather than really flat ones, you have to just hold a steady power, right? I might be better at the punchier ones. So this course was suited for me, and there was like these shallow, long climbs, and my weight was also pretty low at that point. So I felt I had a really good shot at this. And Sudey was the person I thought was my real competition. And it was also like bad roads. The roads were super bad, narrow as well as bad, and it's a pretty technical course. It's not like a straight road race or straight out and back. It's a loop and it's super technical. And the roads are pretty bad in places. And there is some of the bad roads, they are on like descents. So you are going super fast on these super bad roads. Yeah, it's a bad combination. Yes, super sketchy combination. Descents and bad roads. So, but one thing I know is I'm not taking Sudev to the finish line.
Was it a mastered?
It's a mastered. It's a mastered. Yeah, not a TT. But I TT'd it. Yeah. That's what I did. I went hard from the beginning. And the first section, about 8 kilometers, was a gentle ascent. Some 1%, 0.8% overall, but then parts get up to like 2-3%. I went hard on it. I pulled one guy with me, the Salvin guy, the super skinny TTR that I told you about. He's under 18 still, I think. 18 or 19 only now. So this guy pulled with me. He stuck with me for like the first 10 kilometers, then he had to drop off. Then I just TT'd my way to the end. So that was a super fun race. That was Nandi Ode. Palakkad is also quite beautiful to ride in. I'm finding more and more that a lot of the places that I've just seen, when you look at the internet or something, you just see the highlights, right?
Right.
But you go into the countryside roads and there are still like really beautiful places. If you're not looking at looking for the monuments or the buildings or the tourist attractions, there's still a lot of natural beauty to be found in a lot of these places.
Yeah.
And cycling is a great way to explore it.
Yeah, believe it or not, even if you just get out of Bangalore, Hesarghata, there are so many beautiful roads. And even this side, Omar side, just off Narsapura, you go inside, beautiful roads.
I really had to explore a lot of those roads because I'm kind of over highway riding now because I can do the same thing on a trainer. What you're doing on the highway is basically the same as you're doing on the trainer, minus the traffic, which would be one point in favor of the trainer. But a lot of these beautiful roads, Hesarghata side I've been to once or twice, but a lot of the other sides I haven't. So I need to explore these roads in Bangalore. But even in Kerala, there are lots of nice roads. Bangalore weather is Bangalore weather is I feel a little more suited for riding because Kerala is super humid and hot year round. But yeah, that was the Palakkad race. After the Palakkad race, I think I took 1 week rest after the Palakkad race. By rest, I mean I didn't race. I wasn't really resting. Even in that weekend, I wanted to go on a long ride, and I hadn't rode in the rain for a while. I like riding in the rain. I super like riding in the rain. It's just all the maintenance that comes along with it.
Right.
That it's a little
the
cleaning up afterwards. Then your bike also gets damaged quite fast if you ride in the rain a lot, right? Or the water and the grit and grime gets into these hard to reach places, and the maintenance cadence is like fast and sped up a lot if you're riding in the rain. Let me have a little bit of water.
Yeah. So, how is the racing there in Kerala? I mean, there seems to be a lot of races happening nowadays, right?
It's starting to pick up. I would say it's on the come up. So maybe 5 or 6 years ago, if you wanted to race regularly, you had to come to Bangalore.
Yeah.
But these days, races are popping up. So all these individual clubs, right?
Right.
They want to make a name for their own clubs. So it's kind of self-interested in that respect, but it's also
No,
good
but
for the
it's
community.
great for the
it's great for the
community,
community,
right? Yeah.
It's great to build a regular racing culture. And yeah, I think out of the last 8 races, at least 4 I've done in Kerala only. So good amount of races there.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it used to be like we would have this in Ernakulam. In Kochi, I mean, we don't really have roads suited for conducting races. It's either the highway or just that Whittington Road, which is like a 2.5 kilometer loop, which is not really fun to race on.
Yeah.
It's a little monotonous racing like that. Yeah, so I would definitely say the Kerala racing scene is on the come up.
Yeah. So now, after your break, another 2 races, or how many did you do?
This was the first race after the break. No, wait, was it? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. So after the break, yeah, this was my two race weekend.
Oh.
My 2 race weekend was, and not even in the same venue. There's one in Bangalore, one in Mysore. So they were like pretty short events. So it was not as taxing as it would be if I did like 2 long ass races on the same weekend. But the first was the Monthly Course event. The Monthly Course event last week.
Right, the indoor
The
race.
indoor event.
Yeah.
It was super awesome event.
That was super.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean,
wish
it is a lot of work, to be honest, for the organizers more than the participants, and really kudos to the team like Shaurya, Ashwin, Ben, and everyone who was involved in setting up everything, right? It is a really lot of work, the back end, and also on the day of the race to ensure that there are no technical glitches. Of course, the RGT used to crash like every other
you
minute,
have
but
to think up these 2 people who are like racing on separate screens and separate devices.
But it was so much fun, both for the participants and for
the audience.
us who went there to just watch. It was so much fun.
I think I think now that the event has caught some steam, I think there'll be bigger participation next time, and we'll also have more hands helping.
Yeah, you will need more hands helping. I mean, I guess more trainers and stuff like that.
Because
it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. That's one thing I noticed, because I wish that more people participated in this, but then the problem is if more people had participated, we would have never finished on schedule. Two-day event, yeah. So I think we had the right number of participants for this time.
Yeah.
But I think it puts the indoor racing on the map in the city.
It definitely is an awesome experience for everyone.
The thing is, when you're racing out on the road, you don't really get to feed off the energy of the audience, right? Nobody's watching. You're suffering on your own, or you're just like bickering or quarreling or shouting curse words at your fellow racers. It's all aggression, and there's nothing positive to like feed off of. But this audience cheering for you, it was like a
right in your ear as well.
It was a proper mosh pit experience for me. So
that was fun. And you right after the event, you won that, and you headed out to Mysore.
So Shaurya told me that the event would be closing at 6 p.m., which didn't happen. We really had to cut the final round short to make that happen. Even I think it finished around 6:15, 6:30, I think.
Correct, yeah.
But even to make that happen, we had to cut short the final events to just sprints. The first rounds were really long. Right. We had a time trial, we had a sprint, we had a hill climb. So we cut that short to just sprints, which was not really good for me because I'm not going to be a good sprinter.
Well, you managed all right.
It was a like 30-second sprint. Still fairly a long duration for a sprint. With 10-second sprint, Zishan would have smoked me.
Yeah.
But 30-second sprint, I could manage. Yeah, with them, I held a steady power for that. I think I paced myself really well. Zishan, I think, was fading towards the end. I held a good amount of power for that duration. Steady power as well. Because 30 seconds to hold a steady power I don't think it's easy. Like longer durations, you
took him in the last 5 seconds or something.
Up until so in the beginning, I had kind of like a weak start. So Zishan was already ahead of me when I started. I took a little bit of time to get up to speed. He had a higher peak than me. I think he did some 900,000 even at the start. My peak was some 850 or something. But then I was slowly clawing my way back, and then in the end he started fading. And then Srinidhi was shouting my ear to get out of the saddle. I was also starting to fade a little bit. In the end, I could see my power dropping. But then he started shouting my ear to get out of the saddle. and I still wasn't on my drops. I still was on my hoods, so which is not the best way to get out of the saddle and sprint. I'm super awkward at sprinting. If you see me sprinting, it always looks like I'm sprinting for the first time on the bike sprinting, but I will improve there. That's one area I have to improve on. So I edged out Zishan in the last couple of seconds. So super satisfying victory for me. And then I had to immediately scram to go to Mysore. So my bus was at 8 p.m. And this was from Satellite. This bus was from Satellite, which is a good, how many kilometers? I don't know. A good distance.
Shantinagar, right?
It's at least not Shantinagar. It's in Satellite.
Okay.
It starts from Satellite. All the Shantinagar buses were fully booked out. So Satellite is the other corner of the city, right? We had to go quite a long way there. So it was, I think maps was showing 1 hour at least on by car. So I booked a cab. I did the math. I figured I'd be cutting it pretty close, but I had to take the chance. I got there. I had another rider with me who was tagging along, a junior rider called Ashish. So I did that. Went to Mysore, did the ITT right the next morning. So I got like 3-4 hours of. I slept pretty well that night, though not long. It was pretty good sleep. And since I've started like racing regularly, I've gotten my nutrition and all on point. So I know what my body can handle. I know what my go-to food before races is like chocolate milkshake plus muesli. My stomach can really agree with that. I really feel the difference when I'm racing also, when I'm properly fueled with that. Either chocolate milk or something chocolate flavored. I'm a big sucker for chocolate flavored stuff and a big sucker for chocolate ice cream. I have a huge sweet tooth as well. So there's a lot of suffering, right? There's a lot of suffering and food control. I obviously have to portion control to maintain my weight, but then one vice I let myself in to is like ice cream. I like to have ice cream at least once in 2 days or something. I have an ice cream and let myself have that little bit of pleasure. Nice. So I did the Chamundi ITT, and it was a super tight podium. It was the first and second place. So yeah, I'll tell you the times. First place was Dev Jagdish. He came in 10:38. Second place was Somesh. He was 10:42. Third place was me, 10:44. So within 6 seconds, first and third, I was like super tight podium. I was a little disappointed, but Joel and I had a discussion about that TT. I was not placing it super smartly. I went super hard in the beginning. Shouldn't have gone that hard. So I was doing like some 360 watts for the first 4 minutes or something, and then it started dropping at like in some periods in the middle or towards the middle end, I was doing like some 290 or something. There was way too. This is a short ITT. It's like a 10-minute or 11-minute ITT for me. Right. Yeah, it's like a 10:37 effort, right? So I should have had a little more steady power, but yeah, it was badly paced. And yeah, they've had a better day that day. So kudos to him for that. So that was last week. There was this last week, the Mysore ITT, I came third, and then this was another one. This week I had my qualms about doing another race this weekend, but then Nandi Race, I really like Nandi climbing and I really like racing. I had to do this one. I also had an option to go to Chennai, so there's this MARC event.
MRC event, double header, I think. They have
I think they cancelled one of the events.
Oh, okay.
There were two events, one road race and one Merkix TT. I was really interested in the Merkix TT because I don't know, Merkix TT we feel like puts everyone on the level playing field. Otherwise, it's a huge advantage to people who have the TT bikes. Merkix TT is like a purer form of TTing, I feel. And Joel is also like a big proponent of Merkixing TTs, and he'll do it against guys on TT bikes also. I don't think I'd do that. Unless like the competition is completely outmatched, unless I'm that much stronger than the competition. If they have TT bikes, I want to at least use aero bars. Because I know that the advantage that it gives me. But yeah, so Merkix TT I kind of wanted to do, but then I looked at the amount of travel that I would be having to do that race. So this is not even Chennai. This is about 2 hours further from Chennai.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. The venue for the race is 2 hours out from Chennai.
Coimbatore or something?
What's this place called? Tirupur? Tirupura? I'm not entirely sure about the name of the place.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's well removed from the city. So then also Bangalore is somewhere I'm really familiar with, right? I have a lot of people here. I can on short notice also I can like work something out if I want to stay or if I want to. So that kind of thing. I felt like Nandi would be the better choice, and I was also in like good climbing shape. Yeah, so I made the plunge. I just booked one day before. Yesterday morning was when I booked for the race. Yesterday morning was when I booked for the bus. Luckily there were train tickets. Oh, this time it was not a bus. Usually I'm on buses, but this time I came on a train. Yeah, that was super hectic because let's talk about today's race.
Yeah. Let's go for
Yeah, this was one of the more hectic experiences for me because usually races happen on Sundays,
it.
but this one was on a Saturday,
Right.
which it had to be because Nandi is like hell on Sunday. If you want to ride on Nandi, don't do it.
Even on Saturdays nowadays.
Yeah, Saturdays also,
Anyway.
but then Sundays are on a whole other level. But it had to be on a Saturday morning, so I'm noticing it quite at the last minute. Until the last minute, I'm thinking it's a Sunday, but then somebody points it out to me that it's on a Saturday. So then I immediately had to book because usually when I come to Bangalore, I take a 7 p.m. bus. 7 p.m. bus gets here around 6:30 a.m. Then I have a little bit of time, and I have the whole of that Saturday to chill. I can get some recovery or some like slow ride in, and then I can do the race the next day, Sunday, which works out perfectly for me. But Saturday race, I left at 5:30 p.m. yesterday. 5:30 p.m. I had to make an excuse at work and leave early, and then I had to attend further calls in the train. I made an excuse for 1 hour or 1.5 hours, and I got on the train. And then the train was quite comfortable. It was an AC train, so the travel was quite comfortable, more so than buses, because buses usually I pick these recliners, but train you can actually kick back and sleep. Yeah. I got pretty good sleep also on the train. I think I like sleeping on trains also. The slight swaying and movement it has, it's kind of like a cradle, kind of like a cradle, yeah, a rocking cradle.
Yeah.
So, and also the noise of the train, right? It's kind of like white noise.
Correct.
It shuts out all the other noises. So I slept on the train, got here at 4 a.m. I got here. I stopped in the station for a bit to get some fueling in, because I tend to have this habit of now like starving myself a little bit before climb races, especially since it's a like short race, right? So I don't really have to carb load or anything for such a short race. So I was a little low on my in the fuel tank yesterday. So in the morning, I fueled up at the railway station. Then the next challenge was getting to Galleria Mall. So I waited at the station for a bit. I mean, outside the station for a bit for a bus, and eventually an airport bus came. Got on the bus, got to Galleria Mall, and I had to do a bit of walking also. After I got down, and this is all with this huge bike bag. I have 3 bags. I have a wheel bag, I have a bike bag, and I have a shoulder bag for my personal stuff. So usually it used to be 2 bags until I got the wheel bag. The reason I got the wheel bag, I have like this whole system of traveling and racing now. If anybody wants to follow in my footsteps, feel free. So I do a lot of traveling and racing on my own. So I have to make it work on my own. And I almost like invariably use public transport. I don't drive that much, which is a kind of like a byproduct of me riding too much. So I ride so much to the point that my driving skills have deteriorated to where I'm not confident with my own driving. So yeah, that's why I almost all inevitably use public transport, either buses or trains. So I usually I have to spend a lot of time packing the bike in the bag, because I have the frame, then the 2 wheels inside the bag. But that when you're doing that, there's a chance of the wheel rubbing against the frame.
Scratching and all that.
And I don't want frames on my scratch. I mean, scratches on my frame. My OCD wouldn't let me have that. So I'll mummify my entire bicycle before every travel, which is a lot of hassle though. I don't really have like one
Wrapping the frame and all.
Yeah. So I wanted to cut down on that time. So since I'm working and I'm doing all this stuff, time optimization is like very important for me. Everywhere I can cut corners in like time utilization, I have to do it. So as a solution to that, I bought a wheel bag. So now I can pack the wheels separately. So the bike frame goes into the bike bag, and I can also fit some other stuff in there, some clothes, and all, so that the shoulder bag is not too heavy. And then I have the wheel bag for the wheels, so there's no problem of scratching stuff, and I don't have to go that heavy-handed on the frame wrapping. I can just like cover the important parts like the drivetrain, and a few parts like if I wrap, I'm good. So that's there. The downside is now I have 3 bags to carry. Right. So now I have, otherwise my hands would be free. I'd have the bike bag on my back, and I had the shoulder bag in the front, but my hands would be free. But now I have a wheel bag with me. So it's a little unwieldy when you're in like trying to cram yourself into trains and all. You have 3 bags, so you cannot get it all in one go. You have to put the bike bag inside, then you have to get the wheel bag inside. So all that happens, all that logistic stuff. But I make it work. And then in the morning, I had to get the bus. I had to get down. Then I had to walk around a kilometer to get to the venue. It's around 5:20, 5:15 by the time at the venue. And then I have about 45 minutes until the event starts. According to the event organizers, the event would have started at 6 p.m. 6 a.m.
6 a.m. Yeah.
Yeah. So until 6 a.m. I had 45 minutes, and I opened the wheel bag, and my front tire is completely flat.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't have time to deal with the shit in 45 minutes. Even the bike assembly in 45 minutes is like super tight for me. And then I had to do some nutrition stuff. I had to fill the glucose water. I mean, 45 minutes is not enough to do that. All that stuff. So I fix up the bike, except for this front wheel, and I take it to the guy to fill air. I'm thinking this is like maybe some leakages happened. Maybe the valve was not tightened properly. I'm hoping for the best. That was just a small human error. I take it to this guy to fill air, the official mechanic guy, and then he tries filling air. Air is not going in. And this is on the new tubeless wheels that I've got from Shaurya.
Oh.
And to be honest, it's been giving me a little bit of a problem, reliability problems. I think I might just put regular tubes on it. Tubeless is just, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth the trouble for me.
I mean, yeah. I mean, on road bikes, I don't know. I don't have the confidence yet to try. But on
Mountain bikes,
bikes and gravel.
Yeah,
I think
maybe in that context, it's better suited. But because puncturing and sealing again, is that much of a frequent occurrence in road biking? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. When it happens often. But yeah. So how did you manage to deal with it?
Yeah, I'll get that story out. So this is the first thing. He cannot fill air in it. Then I take a closer look at it, and I find that the valve, right, is completely broken.
Oh,
So that's what happened. So the day prior, yesterday, before I started the travel, I had filled air in this. So when I was filling air, it was not going in. The air was not going in. So it was gunked up sealant. So I had to clean the sealant from the valve core. I took the valve core out. With the pliers. So I didn't have a valve core removal tool. So I did it with the pliers. So I think I held on the valve itself when I was removing the valve core. So the part of it was slightly broken. I put the valve core in, I filled the air, it was all fine and dandy. And then until I got the wheel out of the bag and it's completely flat, and then I checked closer and the valve is broken. There's nothing to do there. I cannot change the tube because it's all full of sealant.
Right.
The official help guy asked me if if I wanted to change the tubes. I know that there was not enough time for that one. So the only option for me was to get someone's spare wheels. And I saw Low Studio guys there, and they graciously helped me out. They didn't have to, but
that's super nice.
If I didn't get those front wheels from them, I wouldn't have raced today. I would have just been punching the air in the delirium on. But yeah, so super thanks to you guys for that.
That's the thing with the biking community, right?
Yeah.
They know that you are their main competitor.
Obviously, I'm happy there in the studio. This is known rivalry.
The main competitor for the event also, right?
Yeah.
But still,
They help me out.
They help. That's we see that all the time in the cycling
Yeah.
community. That's the great thing about it.
Because
Yeah.
this was his spare wheel, right?
Yeah.
He had a valid reason to not give me that, because if something he might get a puncture, he might need it during the race.
Right.
And they had all the support vehicles, and also they had people to supply them with extra wheels and all. He didn't have to do that for me. But yeah, so a big shout out to those guys for me. Vishudev was the rider who gave me the wheel.
Nice.
And then I put it on. So, and then the event has already started. That's another thing. So the first part of the event is like a free ride until the starting
to
point.
The start of the
I think it's about 18 kilometers. 18 kilometers until the toll where it starts from. It's an 18 kilometer, what's it called? Neutral zone.
Neutral zone.
Yeah, neutral zone. Fun ride. I think they call it a fun ride as well as neutral zone. So I don't know how long they're gonna wait at the neutral zone. I mean, at the end of the neutral zone, which is the race start. So I'm already like 5-6 minutes behind them when I'm starting. So I gun it. I'm gunning it. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, there are guys who know that I'm gonna be serious competition, so they might push the start early so that I'm not at the start line when it starts. All this stuff I'm conjuring up in my head. I'm doing like some 43 kmph average to get there. Proper tempo / threshold effort I did for some 15 efforts. Then I slowly start seeing these guys who are in the race. Then I got a little relieved. I slowed down the pace a little bit, and then we end up waiting at the start line for like 10-15 minutes. So
That's
I
good.
didn't really have to do that, but then
Yeah. It's
because
a good warm up though.
yeah, wow. Short race, so it's fine. Didn't take that much of a toll on me, and I also got some recovery period. And the race itself, it started at a more comfortable like pace than usually happens in Bangalore racing, which is usually due to guys like me and Joel. Only we are the guys who like to gun it from the start. But this day I was in a more conservative mood. I didn't want to like super gun it from the start because one, I was looking at I wanted to get a good Nandi time. I was in good climbing shape. I knew that I could get I didn't know that I could get a PR per se, but because I don't know, because it wouldn't be a steady state effort, right? I knew that I would have somebody with me and they would be attacking, and it would be like a surgy effort up Nandi. So I wasn't going for a PR, but I still wanted to do a decent time on Nandi, some 23 something, 24 something I wanted to do. So and I also didn't have any teammates to work with. So there were two teams working. So there was Velo Studio team. Then there's this new team from Srinidhi. It's CBR.
CBR or
CBR, I
or
think.
something.
I think
like that.
Cycling Brain something.
Right.
Yeah. CBR is the name of the team. And then there's Trailblazers. They have all these competing teams, and none of the LBB guys were up to it for this race. So I was just doing it alone. And then so I'm alone, so I'm in a little bit of a conservative mode, and I kind of studied the field line and know that there are more than like 2-3 guys who I cannot keep up with on a climb, so who might drop me on a climb. So Imad I know has a much better time up Nandi than I do, so Imad I knew might drop me on the climb. And then Dave Jagdish, he had obviously he had obviously beaten me the week prior.
Right.
So he was also a really good competition up the climb. These are the guys who I ended up going up Nandi with. But then the traffic and the road conditions also made it so that even if I attacked and got a break, I might have to like slow down at the next bumper or the next traffic, and they just catch up. So it was in my best interest to keep the effort a little steady and not too surgy. So most of the like parts of the race until the base of the climb was the steady like fast group ride pace. Some attacks were thrown, like Velo Studio threw some attacks. Some other attacks were there, and I also threw a little, like some parts of the race the pace got really slow. It got annoyingly slow. Like with the tailwind we were going at like 34, 35 and all, which was a little annoyingly slow on the highway. That's a really fast highway, right? I was catching up to them at like 43 kmph. I don't want to do 34 kmph on a race, so I like threw some random attacks here and there just to spice things up and keep things interesting. And there was also one final attack I think Velo Studio threw at the Nandi warm-up or a little before that, somewhere on the uphill sections leading up to Nandi base. But then none of those stuck. Eventually everybody bunched up together. I think there were a lot of riders had fallen behind before that itself, but the strong 10-15 guys, we just stuck together till the base. Then we started going hard at the base. Imad was there, and Deo was there. We started going up hard. And I was in the front most of the time. So I'm looking back and I'm seeing riders drop one by one. The heavier riders obviously cannot keep up. And then after a bit, it was just the four of us. So it was Imad, Dave, myself, and Feroz. Then I try to keep the pace at something that's manageable for me. I don't want to go too hard because the initial part of Nandi is quite shallow, right? So you can go quite fast and you can get a good draft benefit by staying behind someone. So if I'm going super hard on that part, these guys, I figured they were not going to go in the front.
Right.
I did this a couple times and no one was going to the front. So I figured I'd have to do most of the pulling. And I don't want to pull too hard because one, I don't want to give them a draft advantage. And two, I want to keep something in the tank for a kick at the end. I know that I have a good kick at the end. A good anaerobic capacity I have. So I want to kick at the end. I want to leave something in the tank. So I do like a comfortable low threshold kind of effort, low to mid threshold. And these guys are there. I know that I'm not going to drop these guys at that kind of effort, but I'm still counting on my ability to kick at the end. So Feroz, I think, drops off a little after that. So then it's just the three of us. I know both of these guys are quite strong. I'm not going to drop them until I make a serious effort. But then I don't want to... So this is like a whole chess game, right? Because...
It is. I mean, road racing is like that, right?
This properly felt like a chess game to me because I don't know if these guys are at their limit. I don't know if they are saving something for the end or something in the tank. So I don't know if it's in my best interest to go hard at this point because they might just end up catching to me and then sit behind me again and then I'll burn a match. I don't want that to happen. So I think Dave threw a minor attack somewhere in between at some of the no. There was a small attack thrown by Imad. So there's this two dips, right? After the second dip, Imad threw a minor attack,
Right.
but then both of us responded to that. So we bunched up together again. Then we went up. The final really steep parts, the Nandi's Horn, and the last couple hairpins. Imad threw an attack about 2 hairpins or 3 hairpins down. He threw an attack. I think turn 37. I think he threw an attack.
Right.
So I thought if he had kept up that power that he was putting at that point till the end, then he would have definitely dropped me. But then I think he went a little too early. But so I responded to that. And I think he gassed out a little after that. Then I threw my counter attack. I did a really solid effort. So these are the moments that decide the races, right? So until then, I've been fairly comfortable. But then, so my mind is also telling me maybe settle for second or third. It's not too bad to lose to either of these guys. They are known to be good climbers. I'm a bigger guy. I can afford to lose this. I don't need the first. This is all the mind is telling me at that point.
Right.
Before the race, I was like, take the win.
Yeah.
But then when you're hurting a little bit, your body tells you to slow down a little bit. Maybe
Right.
you don't need all that stuff. Maybe a podium is good enough. Maybe not the first. So my mind is telling me this. But then you have to dig into that place of where you're really uncomfortable. Those few 10, 20 seconds is what decides the game. So I dig in for like a good 15 seconds, 15, 20 seconds. I think from 38 I started. 38, 39, 40, right? So 38 is here, 39 is
Yeah.
here, 40 is here. From 38, and the part is fairly steep also. So it's a good place to put a lot of power in. I think I did some, so I didn't have the power meter today. I think I did a good 500 watts effort at that point. And yeah, dropped these two guys and got the win.
Nice. Very well done. Very well done.
Yeah, thank you.
So, in the span of this 1 year, you have been, like we just talked about, you've been racing a ton recently, and that's the best way to learn as well.
Yep.
Gain experience and learn, right? It is not very often that we get the chances to race that often. So BBCH happens, road racing happens once every couple of months. Alternate months are for MTB. There are bar races happen once a month.
Yeah.
But we had chance to race every week. If it is there, you better take it, right?
Yeah.
Luckily you had that with races in
Yep.
Kerala, and you got a system where you are able to travel with
Yeah.
your bike and all that. So that's a great way to learn, gain experience, because these are all the things that you can use to, like dial in your nutrition, dial in your first of all dial in your travel process and
I think
everything,
there's
right?
a lot of like carryover to real life as well. It's not just the biking that's improved by this, right?
Exactly.
I've gotten really comfortable with traveling in general. I think my stomach has gotten really comfortable with unfamiliar food. So I rarely get food poisoning or something like these days. Even if I'm eating from places I haven't eaten before. This wasn't the case when I was back in college. The first time I moved away from school, that was in college. For the entirety of the first 6 months or 7 months, I constantly got sick. It was mostly down to the different food and the different surroundings. So the amount of toughness and the amount of resilience, the kind of those like intangibles that this
Definitely.
builds, right?
Yeah.
This will carry over a lot into all spheres of life, not just cycling.
Yeah.
That's something I value a lot.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more. So all these things will kind of like you're saying, outside the cycling itself, there are a ton of learnings that you can rake up, and in cycling also,
Obviously, yeah.
the racing tactics and all this stuff you
Yeah,
can
I'll tell you this because in my first year of cycling, most of my good results were in TTs because I had the power and I had the fitness, but I didn't know how to race.
Right.
So part of it was down to the bad bike that I had. I wouldn't say bad bike. Trivan is not a bad bike. I still use it on the trainer. The not as good bike that I had. But part of it was also not knowing what to do in a race,
Exactly.
where to be. So you in some places you might be saving a lot of power in some places in the race, but then you are boxed in. You cannot respond to attacks well. So you have to know where to be in what part of the
Positioning and
positioning is,
yeah.
really important. If somebody is looking likely to make an attack, if this guy is looking likely to make an attack, you don't want to be boxed in inside deep in the bunch. You want to be able to respond to that. So these trade-offs and all you have to learn.
There is a ton to learn.
Yeah.
There's so much, that we can get better at.
And it's not something you can learn from a book also.
Exactly.
Because every situation is different. It's something that has to be like wired into the instinct of the person.
Right. We
Over
can
time.
watch ton of videos, ton of race analysis videos and all that. They help.
Yeah.
It's not that they don't.
Yeah.
But nothing like the race
The actual
experience.
racing, yeah. Because it's not just about making the plan in the head, right? The
Right.
body also has to execute that plan, and
Exactly.
your mind has to be in agreement with the body. So watching the videos might help with the mind part of it, but then the body agreeing with that and knowing if the body can agree to that, if you make a plan in your mind, all of that comes only with racing.
Yeah, like you were talking about, right? It's also like a lot like a chess,
Yeah.
game. When you are, in a road race, especially, it's all so much
Chess on the road.
chess
Yeah.
on the road, right? So, TT is a different beast altogether. It's so much about your mental dialogue, your your
It is about
pacing.
individual suffering.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You-
And some amount of pacing has to be there because you have to know how to ride a course and where to put the power in. Like I said, the ascents and descents, those parts, and the winds, you
Yeah.
have to take into account. There's a lot of details involved, but then it's still pretty much an individual event.
It is, and I mean, even if you get into the TT, really get geeky into that, it is so much you can
Yep.
actually explore,
Yeah.
right? So someone like NJ, that's what he does.
Yeah. He eats numbers for breakfast, numbers for dinner, and
So the wind direction, the humidity, everything. If he has to go and do a calm effort on a Nandi, where is the wind coming from?
Yeah.
What is the humidity? What is
Nandi
that? What is the
especially,
right?
you have to do the
right
right
time?
analysis because
Yeah.
Nandi is not like a super steep climb.
Right.
Super steep climb, it's mostly dependent on your power and just your weight.
Yeah.
It's a very simple first degree equation.
Right.
But on a shallow climb like Nandi, and it's not even like steadily shallow. The first part is shallow, then the second part is steep. So you have to know exactly where to put the power in. You have to know exactly where to go fast. You have to know exactly where the wind is coming from. And again, it's not like a one-directional thing, right?
Right.
It goes this way,
Keeps-
then it goes this way, and then there's a couple of hairpins.
Yeah.
So it's a complex equation there.
Right. So yeah, I mean, you've been doing great, great first year, but you're learning a ton. But I've already seen, I mean, from what I heard from you, that when things don't go wrong, don't go as planned, like your first nationals, it's very important to stay equanimous, like
Yes.
you talked about learning from Joel, that it's not how many times you fall, it's how many times you get
Get
up
back out,
again.
yeah.
So keep that in mind. It is not easy at all.
Yeah.
Cycling is a really hard sport. You will see a lot of ups and downs. So stay in there, hang in there, keep doing
The
the
thing is,
efforts.
it's always the really passionate people who are also the most broken down when something bad happens, right?
Exactly, because you feel everything at that much stronger,
Yeah.
right? Right? You are so
Somebody who doesn't
emotional.
care that much would also not be broken down that much. But
Exactly.
when you're really passionate about something,
Exactly. You are so emotionally charged. It's so you feel everything that much,
at some points
10x.
you have to be that external observer and
Yeah.
then just evaluate your emotions from a distance
Yeah.
and make a logical decision. That thing has to be done.
Exactly. As you get more of these experiences, you will learn
Yep.
also that aspect also. I'm just, putting it out there so that you
Again,
kind of
something that has a lot of carryover to real life,
Right.
not just cycling.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, great stuff, man. And I wish you all the very best for the future. What is there on the menu for the upcoming stuff?
I'm yeah, so the nationals I'll definitely be doing. National games also, I'm gonna make a go for it. I mean, I think the selections happens based on the last year's nationals. So if the state agrees to it and they agree to send me, I'm definitely doing the national games as well.
Okay.
So I have to dial in the training for that. So I might have to like whittle down on the racing a little bit, because when you're racing and traveling every weekend, the
Yeah.
training cannot happen as fluidly or as smoothly as it should.
True.
So closer to those events, I might come down on the race a little bit, come down to the racing a little bit. But in the immediate near future, there's the Bangalore Classic,
The
So,
160.
the 160K. Yeah.
July
Yeah.
16th. Yeah.
Hoping to get a much better result this time than last time. Last time I think I came 12th, but that was on the tri-band, the broken spokes and all that stuff. Still came 12th. Yeah, I think it's a decent result, but a lot more progress than me.
I am sure you will do much better with your new bike and everything, and more than the bike and the equipment, the experience that you have gained with it, right? So all the very best, and yeah, probably catch up with you on the podcast in the future as well.
Thank you. Honor to be here, and yeah, have a good day, everyone. If you made it this far, then salute.
Thanks, man. That was my conversation with John K. Sunny. I hope you enjoyed that. If you are enjoying these podcasts and finding them useful, please consider supporting the podcast by subscribing to it on YouTube as well as on your favorite podcasting app. Supporting the sponsors of the podcast is also a great way to support the podcast itself. This episode is brought to you by Findbetter.ai and thebikeaffair.com. Thanks again for your continuous support. See you next week with another guest.